Hi everyone, it's Heidi from Costume Co. back with another live stream. Thanks everyone for coming. And tonight I have an amazing guest. It's his first time doing a live stream, so we're going to be really, really kind and warm to him and offer him a wonderful welcome. It's Redwolf, who is here with me, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting his wife first through one of my videos. So he knows a lot about weapons and armor. And hey, Red Wolf, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good tonight. How's everybody?
I think everyone's good. Well, right now it's just 30 days. I see 30 days is here. And I've got some questions that some of my viewers have submitted to me ahead of time. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about some of that stuff. Actually, it's interesting because how I met your wife is she came onto my video and I was talking about this particular type of Indian armor. And she actually said to me, oh, actually, that's a brigandine. It's actually lined with metal. And I said, oh, well, thanks. You know, like, because what had happened was I had found it, some examples of it on a website, I don't think it was Pinterest. I think it was like an actual exhibit, but they didn't explain that information. And so I told her I just read what was there.
Well,
And
Pinterest is a great resource
yes,
once you know what you're looking at.
yeah. But a lot of times they don't give you all the information, right?
No,
Yeah.
not even a little.
Yeah, so I even find that like with costumes, what I have to do is if I find something on Pinterest, I have to then go find the actual source because a lot of times the information is wrong. So anyway, so that was really fun. And then and me being crazy, I was like, hey, you want to come on my live stream? And you were probably like, who is this nut bar lady inviting me to come and talk on her show? And that's me. So
I
what?
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as you were telling me, you're a genteel gentleman. You're from the South.
Yes, ma'am.
So, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself then?
Well, where to begin on that? What I normally tell people is I'm a historical martial artist. I'm a bushcrafter, and I'm a living historian. I do a lot of when I've got time when I'm off work. I do a lot of living history stuff. I went to school for history. About the only thing I was good at in college was history. Um, I have a particular interest in ancient warfare, and particularly common man type stuff. I'm more interested in what the peasants did up to maybe the minor nobility. Um, and I really like experimenting. I don't just want to know what everyone thinks happened or what everyone has passed information on. I want to see how it actually was, if that makes any sense. I want to know how it all fits together because there's a lot of nuances to it that the Victorians are very bad about muddying the waters on. Yeah, a lot of the information we have now is on stuff museum curators thought looked good in an exhibit together.
Yes.
Instead of sorting it by time or place, you'll have stuff from England next to stuff from India, and they'll talk about them like this guy was using this sword against this type of armor, and those two things have never met before they're back at the museum together 600 years after someone wore them.
Yeah. So you're saying that like the Victorians would have taken weapons and armor and put them together in exhibits when they wouldn't have meant to be together.
Well, a sword's a sword. So we
Yeah.
put the swords in the sword exhibit instead of in the uh, medieval exhibit or the European exhibit, stuff like that. They just kind of things kind of get lumped. And
Yeah.
that's a very generalized statement, but to talk about arms and armor like we're going to, a lot of generalized statements are going to be made with some specific qualifications added in there. But I'm a guy who likes to experiment with stuff. I'm not content to just read about it. I want to know. And I've had the privilege of joining HEMA groups, which is historical European martial arts,
Okay.
and occasionally having access, particularly the organization ARMA here, and it's real big in the U.S. and it has an international thing. But they have Their focus is based on trying to bring back into a living martial art the original medieval fighting styles. They have manuscripts, the oldest ones from around 1200, leading up all the way up to about 1900. We have 50, 100 books written, a lot of them illustrated, because they were sent out to nobility as sales flyers to try and get you to hire the guy who wrote the book.
Oh, okay.
And so we have a lot of found in the back of chapels and way back in a duke's house or something like that. You'll have a really old book that's been sitting there for 800 years that no one cared about, because who fights with arming swords and bucklers anymore? And so they found them, and they're working on bringing them back to life. And but they have but because of that, there's a certain amount of experimental archaeology there, which keys off some of my living history stuff that I really like, where they try their best to get historically made armors, historically made swords, and to try out the various ways you can interpret the manuals to see which one is the most effective. So you literally have guys using 1300s fighting styles with 1300s swords made the 1300s way, hitting 1300s armor.
Okay. Now, let me ask you. So so anybody doesn't know this, you have a YouTube channel, which is called Redwolf Knives. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That was Wiki. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I put the link in the description. So you were telling me a little bit just before we came on the stream that you had to put a pause on that for a bit because you opened up a shop. What kind of store is it?
I got all my licensing done, and I opened a gun and knife shop in one of my little local towns out here.
So are you selling modern knives and guns, or are you doing historical as well?
Historical as well. I actually moved some of my muzzle loaders that I sell off this rack behind me.
Yeah, I see that.
I wanted, in case I needed some reference material, I wanted all my swords to hand. I sell longbows, swords, modern stuff, old stuff. We have a very diverse clientele around here. We originally got started going to rendezvous and little living history type stuff, mountain men, things like that. My wife made clothes and kit bags and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a good old boy. I know how to go out in the woods with a knife and a box of matches and be out there for a week.
Yeah. So you like to do, so tell me a bit about that. Like I know you like to do outdoor, like you'll stay out in the bush for a while.
Oh, yes,
like
ma'am.
Survival type thing?
Yes, ma'am. Until I either get too hungry or usually someone needs something and comes in looking for me.
Yeah. So you don't have a communication device if someone needs to get a hold of you. They have to come find you.
My wife spent an extra $300 or $400 to get me a waterproof phone the last time we got an upgrade, because if it's not waterproof, everyone, I mean, if I want to go cross a river and there's a river in my way and I can legally go from one side to the other because I have permission to be on the land, that river's not going to stop me from getting to the other side. I want to go, I'm gone. I've probably drowned 4 or 5 phones like that. Okay. Just forget I have them. And,
but the waterproof phone, will that survive like you going in the water like that?
Oh, yes, ma'am. The one I've currently got a little Android smartphone, but it's good to like 5 feet for like 3 hours or something like that underwater. Wow. It can take like a 5-foot fall. It's the active version. Yeah. It can take like a 5-6 foot fall, which is good. And it can survive underwater for like I said, 2 hours or so at like 5 foot of pressure without a case on it. I don't have to do anything else to it. I just got the phone in my pocket and I'm good to go.
Now, do you know Les Stroud?
I'm very familiar with his work.
Yeah, because he's Canadian. he's Canadian. He's from my country. I actually really enjoyed his show. Like he has a really great outdoor show. So he just plunks himself down in some kind of crazy location, and then he has to try and get out of there
Have you
with
seen
just
his?
minimal. Sorry, go ahead.
I think his newest special is up on Netflix right now.
Oh yeah.
He goes around filming in bear country, and he gets like as close to some bears as I am to the computer right now.
Oh my gosh.
He's just like, shoo shoo, we don't have any weapons, but shoo shoo, we don't want any trouble. We're just
Yeah.
That Stroud's crazy.
That's a little bit nuts. I heard him interviewed the other day, and he's actually in a band now. That's what he's focusing on is his band. No, I
think
know
he has
some
a
of the
recording
stuff.
studio in his barn at his house or something like that.
Yeah.
I've seen
But you know, because like he's done a couple of them in Canada, and we've got like a crazy amount of wilderness up here, like the Rockies and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty dangerous just to do stuff like that without knowing what you're doing. One of the things I want to get that you talked about in one of your videos, this has nothing to do with costumes, guys, sorry, but I want to get that water purification kit you were talking about. That's such a great thing to have on hand.
I've got one in the shop right now. If you want to,
it would save your life. It could save your life.
Well, and I mean, like even the ones I've got, I like them because it has both the charcoal filter, which takes out chemicals and taste and stuff like that, waterborne stuff, but it also has the ceramic filter, which is better than the charcoal at getting out the bacteria and parasites.
Yeah, I have two. Yeah, I have two people in my life. One is my husband who got giardia. And the other one, I had a friend, and then I had a friend who also got, well, they call it beaver fever here, and deathly sick, both of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the height of modern medicine can barely get ahead of it.
Yeah, like luckily my husband had he had the pills with him, like but he's still like, you know, even years later he was having long-term effects from it. So yeah, so I saw that and I was like, that's a great idea to have with you. Now, do you mind if we talk a bit about weapons and armor?
I'm banged up. Just hit me with some questions.
Now, the one thing we're going to talk about is, okay, so a lot of my viewers, as you know, are huge Game of Thrones fans. So, you know,
almost wore my Stark shirt.
You almost wore your what shirt?
My Stark shirt, my house Stark.
Oh, are you a Stark lover? Is that the house that you that's your favorite?
By the time of the show, yes. I think a generation ago, I probably would have been in the Stormlands.
Yeah.
I think Robert's Rebellion, that would have been a tough guy to follow, but a fun guy to ride behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also like besides Game of Thrones, what type of shows do you like to watch?
Big Western fan. I grew up watching Westerns with my my grandfather and my father. I like stuff that's well done.
So you like the old West? Do you like that type of thing?
I love the Old West. American Civil War was almost my field of study.
Okay, that's very cool.
Or should I say the War for Southern Independence.
Yeah. Do you like Japanese, like Kurosawa type thing? Like Japanese samurai? Are you into that at all?
It has to be well done. I've spent my life in search of effective martial arts, and I've got the scars to prove it.
Yeah.
I originally went into Japanese martial arts and studied a lot of Japanese stuff. Very interesting culture. Completely different from Europe. Like just about everything's flip-flopped.
Yeah.
But then I got into HEMA and started finding some stuff. I actually had a saber gifted to me for Christmas one year, and I was trying to find a way to fight with a saber because you can't use a one-handed sword with a metal guard the same way you would hold a katana. There's like 6 inches less room on the grip to grab it.
Now, I was going to ask you that. So when you do living history, do you guys do reenactments?
Sometimes there's a bunch of nomenclature split in that particular hobby. Reenactment technically covers mock combat.
Okay.
I tend to do more living history, which is more concerned with the day-to-day living.
Okay.
You know, like you were talking about, like I go out for a week I go out for a week with nothing but stuff that would have existed or approximations of it for, say, 1750. I really like Scots French and Indian War.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I'm a big fan of that, and
we had big French British wars up here with the beaver pelts.
y'all have had some. Canada has been a very interesting place historically.
Yeah, there's a really good show about it actually called Frontier Man with the guy who plays
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa, yeah. So that's shot in Canada. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah. It's
I don't know what you think about.
Brutal.
I don't know what you think about the weapons and that.
I like the weapons. There's a couple. You can't get 100% away from Hollywooding stuff, and there's little new. I mean, sometimes it's just stupid little nuances that ruin it for me that no one else would notice. But that's the reenactor, living history guy problem. Just the little itty bitty things. Like, no, that's 200 years out of date.
Well, they must hire living history people for consultants, don't they?
You would be surprised. You're familiar with Lindy Page on YouTube?
Oh no, I'm not. We were talking. I know Scholar Gladiatoria,
yes,
and
ma'am.
I know Shad.
Well, Scala and Lindy Page do some stuff. His name is Lloyd.
Lloyd, okay.
They've done some collaborations together. But Lindy Page, I believe, made a video one time about being a consultant, a historical consultant on a movie. I don't know if him or a friend, but basically they just pay the guy to sit there and bring in coffee, and nobody asks him anything.
You're kidding.
They just got it. They'll have them on the set so they can put on the paper that they had a historical consultant on site. But the particular tale is something like he was there and they finally went up there and, so what did you think about that take? Well, the cavalrymen have infantry banners.
Yeah.
The infantry have cavalry banners. And they said, it's okay, sir. We're not going to ask you anything else.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, I just want to say that.
It's good.
Oh, sorry, Redwolf. I'm just going to say hi to a few people that just come in, okay? So for anybody who's just joining us, I'm here with Redwolf. He is a living historian. Like your weapons, you have a lot of knowledge about historical weapons. Your area of expertise is history of what period of history would it be? Like mostly, that's your area of sort of interest. Medieval, British, like Scottish. What's sort of your area that you like?
I really don't know if I could pin anything down. What I normally tell people is pre-Korean War.
Oh wow, okay, that's very cool. Okay, I get that's a good timeline. So I'm just gonna say so 30 days is here. He's a regular. He's just moderating the chat for us. And Pretty Dark is here. Says love it all. No nipple armor though. We can talk about that later if you want. Hindsight POV is here. Says, what are your thoughts on the 11 armor from Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films? I'll get to questions in a minute, guys. Okay. Aaron LaFay's here. He says, hello, welcome to the chat, everyone. Hi, Aaron. And 30 days, and then they're just talking with each other. So yeah, and I think 30 days is a few questions too. So I have a few questions I think that I sent to you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them because I screwed up. I meant to send them to you. You know what happened? You know what happened? This is what I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm in the middle of emailing you. I don't know if Jack's watching right now. I'm sitting in the middle. He comes and he plunks down, and then I see him put something on TV, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then I look and he's putting Solo on, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of something right now. I can't watch a movie. I got to go to bed. And because we haven't seen Solo. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan.
A little bit. I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of said, fine, I'm just going to go upstairs because I didn't want him to be watching it while I was sitting there. Right. So I realized I didn't send you the complete email because he does stuff like that to me. So Jack, if you're listening, he knows that I didn't want to watch Solo yet, but I'm hopefully gonna watch it in the next few days. It didn't get the best reviews, but I'm going to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody in the chat likes has seen Solo.
Well, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of trouble watching Daenerys Targaryen in any other role.
It's kind of
yeah.
I haven't seen her because I know she was in another movie. I don't know that I've seen her in anything else. It would be just even with her dark hair, it just would be weird, right?
Game of Thrones has been great for cares. Game of Thrones
absolutely.
Everybody everywhere.
It's made careers. It's totally made careers, hasn't it? So, all right. So, are you okay if I ask you these questions?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. So the first question is, this is my question actually. Just I thought might be a good thing to clear up for people who are watching. It says, what is the difference between a coat of plates and a brigandine? Did you hear me?
Now that cut out a little bit.
Okay, let me read it again.
A coat of plates and a brigandine.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Well, it's twofold. The first answer would be thickness.
Mm-hmm.
The second would be time. As we are getting into, this might be worth noting. Something that really kicked me off on a lot of these in-depth questions. I'm trying to get a forge set up, and I've got it. I'm waiting for this horrible Louisiana weather to cool off so I can get out there and actually do it.
Are you guys having a heat wave right now? Because I know Aaron was saying in South Carolina it's really hot.
Our life is a heat wave.
See, it's freezing here. Isn't that weird? It's like cold.
We have 3 seasons in Louisiana. We have cold and wet, hot and wet, hot and dry.
So what season are you in now?
We're moving from hot and wet to hot and cold.
Okay.
The humidity out here is like between 75 and 98% humidity, and it's been hovering between like 95 Fahrenheit and 75 Fahrenheit, and 75 right now is our cold days.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm getting into the smithing because I'm into the martial arts.
Yeah.
And it's quicker and cheaper for me to learn how to smith than it is to save up money to buy all of the things I want to try. And so I've been studying a lot of the information, not from a historian's point of view, but from a recreationist point of view.
Sure.
So I've been looking at details that normal people wouldn't care about.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was we started getting modern steel production up, or iron production, where we go from being able to work bits of iron, the size of a Canadian dollar coin, to sheets maybe as big as your hand, eat more easily, quicker. And so when knights come into play, and with knights we're talking about 2 guys at I wish I had a good kilogram conversion for y'all.
Oh, that's okay. Most people are American. You can speak.
Okay. So we've got somewhere around with a historical knight, 1,000 to 1,200 pounds of guys, the horse, the armor, the guy, all of his panoply, hitting each other on a spear point about this big at 30 miles an hour. So at the tip of the spear is like 60 miles an hour hitting a guy.
Yeah.
So what they did originally is they put the big thick shields in front of them. So the spear has to go through the shield to start hitting the mail, to hit the padding, to hit the guy. Well, when you start getting all these guys...
Are you talking about a Gambeson, like as the foundation?
Yes, ma'am.
Gambeson? Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know what that is. Do you mind?
And we can get into all this in a minute.
Sure. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
But from there, that's not enough. And you can do, like with jousting, is mano a mano. It's a duel. The sporterized duel. There's some movement you can do to make a guy miss. You see it in Game of Thrones. If you know what you're looking for, you can see them playing with where exactly the horses are, turning and stuff. Trying to do that when you've got 1,000 guys pressed knee to knee and moving in one direction. They can't dodge individual attacks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They just running in the direction that everybody else is making them run. So what they start doing is taking these hand-size pieces and putting them in a and riveting them to metal and wearing them. And the original coat of plates has very large plates. And this is an issue I have with the show, and we probably will get into this in a minute. But the proper way to construct a coat of plates or a brigandine is to layer them one over the other on every side and rivet it at least at the corners so that it goes through two pieces and two pieces. And the original coat of plates are really big. And as time goes on, the brigandine is smaller. We're talking about going from something the size of your hand to something to like the size of a playing card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is actually from one I'm building for myself.
Yeah, like Renly, I was telling, I don't know if it was your wife, like Renly actually wears a brigandine, a proper brigandine. Like they actually built it, like because I read an interview and I feature that. But the Game of Thrones, the Lannisters, the Starks, they have big gaps in between, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So a blade could go through that?
Quite easily.
Okay, so unless it's like, yeah, because it's just leather. I've talked a bit about this. Obviously, I'm not a weapons expert. I'm really fascinated with armor.
Leather armor and leather as part of armor has a big. We have a big problem with that because museum curators had to guess on stuff based on, well, we read about leather armor, but leather armor doesn't survive. One, it's not metal. Once the leather armor is torn or damaged, there's nothing else you can do with it. You can't repair it.
Yeah. So even if the armor had leather on it, on the metal like plates, the leather would eventually rot or disintegrate. So you just are left then.
Well, you can't wear. I mean, you can't wear a leather biker coat in all weather and it lasts very long.
Yeah.
You got to wax it, take care of it, and still you're going to wear it out just by wearing it.
Sure. So unless it's like, like I watched one of the videos I watched that was Matt's was about cuir bouilli, which is boiled leather. But he said that's like an incredibly, messy, stinky process. I've
been debating if I want to talk about this on air or not.
Oh, it's that kind of thing, is it?
I study. I'll go this far. I'm waiting until I have all my ducks in a row to test it, and I'm going to film the test before I come right out and say what it is.
Sure.
But I have a working theory. I'll hint this far. I have a working theory where I cross-reference some Asian stuff or some Arab Asian stuff with some stuff from the American Southwest. I found some accounts from the American Southwest that with that information, I was able to do some, the Google now has where you can read a lot of old books.
Oh, that's really neat.
It's called.
Yeah.
I found the right search terms from a book that I bought talking about some combat with Plains Indian tribes. The Plains Indians, Native American Indians traditionally wear a lot of leather armor. They only quit wearing it because European muskets shoot clean through it. And so if it's not doing any good and it weighs 30 pounds, why don't I be 30 pounds lighter and faster?
So it would have been only when they were fighting each other. And then once the white man came, they kind of ditched it. Is that what you're saying?
Because it's just useless weight. It's just dead weight that slows them down. But
sorry, go ahead.
As a living history guy, like I was mentioning earlier, French and Indian War, we have the word cuir bouilli, but we don't know what it is. There's a lot of speculation. What most people do today is use a 18th century, 19th century process for making canteens and shot pouches for holding bullets for shotguns, Fowlers, called jackware. And they used to make cups out of it, and you can't put anything hot in it. But they boil it in wax, usually beeswax, and it makes a very moldable leather. As a matter of fact, I've brought something up here but they start with a piece of leather. I also do leather working.
Okay, so is that rawhide that you have?
No, ma'am. This is regular leather. This is going to be vegetable tanned right here.
Okay,
but
yeah,
it's
just
a
so
certain
people know.
thickness. This is called strap leather.
Okay,
it's real thick.
Yeah, is that what you would use to make belts?
Yes, ma'am. Like belts, just like that, real thick stuff. Blacksmiths say for knife sheaths. What a lot of people, but you boil this, and the problem with it is when you put wax in leather, the leather cuts like wax. So it's better for withstanding impacts than raw leather. But the modern version doesn't withstand cuts, which is the main thing that you would use leather to fight. And wax leather is heavy.
Oh, that makes sense. Does it actually soak into the leather?
It actually soaks it into all the pores.
So then it just gets very heavy to wear.
It's very heavy. Yeah. We're talking 30, 40 pounds. Yeah.
See, I thought the way they were describing it, it sounded almost like it was like a plastic, like becomes almost like plastic-like.
Very, very, very plastic. Yeah. I mean, the heat from your body will form it to you.
Okay. Yeah. So that will be very exciting then if you try to do this and is it going to be anything like a lamellar, or is that totally a different thing altogether as well? Like Japanese lamellar, or is that what you're going to attempt to do? Is that totally a different thing?
Lamellar is a construction technique. And this is a thing that a lot of people don't understand.
Okay. So thank you for explaining that. All right. I didn't know that.
There's probably dozens of recognized styles, like technically the Lannisters. The Lannister man-at-arm has the strips on their armor. That probably would be considered a lamellar armor because it's probably not a single fused piece with some weird looking ridges on it. But most people, when most people think of lamellar, well here's you were talking about brigandines. So this is from one I'm making for me. So with a brigandine, you take these two pieces, you put cloth in front of it, and a lot of times behind it, and you rivet it. With lamellar, you'll normally have holes in a certain configuration, and you'll string it or wire it together in some pattern, and that's like the brigandine is almost lamellar, but it's riveted instead of tied. And and a lot of the
so on the outside you'll only see the rivets, you won't see the plates, but on the inside, if you turn on the like sometimes you'll just see like three dots, like sort of three metal rivets.
Very common style, and you have to remember that the outside of these are style. I'm wearing everything I like about the world on my person. That's the medieval mindset.
So if you're a person of royalty, yours would be very fancy.
Normally velvet or satin. Common man would be linen canvas or wool. Leather isn't super common, and mostly that is used by knights because leather's heavier, but it does provide a certain amount of extra protection in addition to the plates. And they're mostly sitting on a horse and riding around, making the horse do all the load bearing.
Yeah, they're there more like a figurehead. They're not doing any of the work, right?
Actually, knights have a hideous death rate. Really? Yes, ma'am. Knights are really where the action is when it comes to it. But the entire feudal system is based around a modern comparison would be special forces. A knight is basically a special he's a guy who spends all of his time training to wear this particular suit. He has to be able to. You give a knight as a minor noble because he has peasants who are giving him money. You know, all of his taxes and all that. He's using that to buy a series of specialist horses that are only good for riding into battle. Spending, I have a book on cavalry. It takes a year to 3 years to train a horse to do the things that a knight's horse would do, from training it to wear all of its horse armor to just not flinching when you run it at something.
Wow.
It takes years to train the horse. You know, a man starts becoming a knight at around age 7 as a page and spends 12 years or so training to be a knight. You know, a sword, unless you're in the late period buying used swords, in the Norman Viking period, a sword will cost you the equivalent of $5,000 to $50,000 to have a sword made by hand. You know, you got to have someone who has enough money to get that sword and to pay for all of his lances that he's training with and all of his armor. You know, a suit of mail costs you as much as a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And you
have to be wealthy then, is what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. You have to have a certain amount of wealth to be poor at your job. To be a broke knight, you have to be very rich.
Yeah.
Just for maintenance costs.
Now, would there have been any like kind of superstars, someone who just would have risen up despite their maybe lack of wealth, just because they were just so good at combat?
That does happen, but there's luck, there's skill, and those people normally still had a certain amount of armor to begin with.
Well, I mean, John, I mean, he's not even necessarily, Jon Snow's not maybe a great example, because he does, even though he's a bastard, he comes from money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he went to the Watch. I've just got done reading the first book. He went to the Wall. His dad, you know, Ned set him up when he went. He has proper furs. Well, matter of fact, the rest of the Watch makes fun of him because he's like, I'm here with all this crap that I'm stuck with. And they're like, crap, he doesn't even have a cloak that doesn't have holes in it. And you're wearing fur.
Yeah.
Which
well,
is a real big thing,
and the designer, she talks about that. She talks about how, you know, Samuel and John both know they're going, like they're not, you know, criminals or whatever. They're both going on purpose. And so they're both prepared. And
in fact, so Sam's getting paid off, you know?
Yeah. Like, and so he has warm clothes, whereas, John, John too, I guess, to a certain extent. So it's like, where some of these guys, they're like freezing to death pretty much, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, they pick the Night's Watch by getting whoever no one wants anywhere else. The same thing probably goes for their clothes. Everyone's just got generic black cast-offs.
Yeah, like it was funny because there's the one scene where they sorry guys, there's might be some spoilers here. In season 7, when they go they're not at Castle Black, they're at the other one, and they all, you know, all of a sudden they're wearing clothes ready to go out, you know, on their adventure. And I was like, what, do they have like a closet of clothes? You know, but I'm thinking they probably do. Like, as people die, or, you know, they probably have access. It's the same with the House of Black and White. I was saying they probably have, you know, as people die and they strip the clothes off of them and bathe them, they probably, you know, keep all the clothes and use them.
Well, I mean,
repurpose them.
About spoilers, you know, I mean, thanks to Stannis, there were suddenly a whole bunch of new furs worn once.
Yeah.
Lying around season 7.
Yeah.
You know, a couple months after a battle.
So can I ask you another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, 30 Days was asking this too, and I think this is a good question. Okay, so and this is just a general thing. What is the lightest armor and what is the heaviest armor? And I guess it can depend on whatever period you want to speak of.
This one is actually pretty universal.
Okay.
And it depends on your definition of lightest armor. The lightest armor you can wear minimally is a helmet, but only if you have a shield.
Okay.
You know, shields are technically heavier than a lot of types of armor, but most people don't qualify the shield as part of the armor. So that's my cheater answer.
So if you're only wearing a helmet, it's not considered armor.
Well, it's only effective because you've got a shield covering you from here down.
Yeah.
You've got a shield covering you. The only thing you got to worry about is here up. And so that's just where all the hits are going to be. And a period helmet weighs 2.5, 3 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's light.
Well, you know, like the Norman style nasal helms,
Yeah.
or some of the like Roman style. We're talking, depending upon the thickness of the metal, 2 to 5 pounds tops.
Yeah. I got to try on some Viking helmets. I went to we had a at our museum in Toronto, we had a Viking exhibit, and they had some reenactors there. It was so fun. And I talked to the woman there, the Viking expert there, for like 2 hours. I must have driven her crazy. I had her take me through everything. She talked to me about everything. So they had these helmets, and they were pretty light.
Next thing I would say would be a Gambeson, whatever name by which you call the standalone padded armor of your area. There's even arguments about, like, in England they might call it a Gambeson or an Akiton, depending upon,
Akiton, yeah.
Words change over time.
Sure.
And there's a half thickness padding that goes under metal armor. And then what poor guys wear, the peasantry, when they had armor, would have had a double thickness or triple thickness padded armor. Matter of fact, give me one second.
Sure. I just want to say, Redwolf, I don't know if you can hear me. I got a new person here. Bubba's here. Hi. He says, hey, folks. In hindsight, how's everyone doing in the chat? We're going to get to more. Hindsight said, thankfully, the heat wave is over in New York. Now it's just muggy and misty. Wow, really? Like, because I'm in Toronto and it's very cool here.
It's the hurricanes, as I can.
Yeah, probably the residuals from that. Now, were you guys affected by that at all? By the hurricanes? Did you get any like residual effects from that? Can you hear me?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. Did you get any effects from the? Did you get any residual effects from the hurricane?
Not this year. It hit the.
Okay. That's good.
Instead of going up the Gulf, it went up the Atlantic this time, and nobody around here knows what to do because hurricane season was one of our weather conditions. It's like our mix-up.
Yeah.
It's in Louisiana. Hurricanes are fun times.
Oh, Bubba says, I saw the medieval armor exhibit when it was at the Museum of Modern Art in Chicago. I don't know what exhibit that would have been.
They have a lot of really cool exhibits to go out there.
I'm sure. Yeah. They probably have lots of touring exhibitions. Sorry, go ahead. What were you going to show me?
This is a test piece I made for some of my swords. I'm testing out some historical padding options for the games, but we're talking something like this thick.
Oh, that's thick.
Is what a peasant would be wearing as his full suit of armor down to his knees or maybe his ankles, depending upon location.
So what would the padding be? What would be inside?
Potentially a lot of things. That particular one's full of a type of grass, horsehair, linen, unprocessed linen, which is tow.
Yeah, I've seen that. Like flax.
Insanely hard to cut. Yeah, it's flax. Insanely hard to cut stuff.
Yeah, I saw actually a living reenactor. He kind of shredded it with this tool, like kind of made it. It looked like almost like hair by the time he was done with it.
Yes, ma'am. The base fibers look a lot like hair. Very good. But that kind of stuff. But once again, like with leather, we have a lot of speculation. We have some occasional sources that say these guys on this campaign were wearing this because it's what they could afford.
Yeah, or what was locally available to them.
Yeah. The more locally available it is, the cheaper it is, the more guys are wearing it.
Oh, and Amber's here. She says, "Hey, y'all." Amber's another one of my regular viewers. What is the layering? Oh, she has a question too, so I'll get to that in a second. Sorry, go. And then the actual fabric, is it linen? Like I've heard oftentimes it's linen, but could it be other things too?
Yes, it can be a lot of stuff. It can be any fabric anybody can lay hands on. Sure.
Now, because I saw Shad talked about it, I guess linen, this is interesting, is that it does have some, is it hard to pierce? That's what I think he said. Or is that true?
It's a lot depends upon a lot of factors, but it can be.
Obviously, if it's dense, like tightly woven and
actually,
dense.
worn out linen is supposed to be better than fresh linen. For some reason, it's just harder to cut. It's just harder to cut.
It probably gets tighter. It probably gets tighter over time, and maybe with the oils and stuff.
I believe that's what my wife just yelled at me from off camera.
Oh, is she there? Does she want to come say hi?
You want to say hi?
Tell her to come say hello. I can see her then.
She says she's fine in the background.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear her input, though. If she has anything to share.
Yes, ma'am. I actually can I show a book on here? Give a little shout out. Of course.
Yeah.
This is from if I can say. I don't
know if I can see it, but if you put it up, and then if you give me the name, I can put it in the link.
Okay, this is from a Mr. Gregory Aldreet. It's a Reconstruction Ancient Linen Body Armor.
I'm gonna put that in. I'll put it in the link. So, what's his name again?
Gregory.
Aldreet.
Aldrete.
Oh, okay, great.
I believe he's at the University of maybe Green Bay or something like that. But
that's quite a specialization. That's
yes, ma'am.
Lord, Aaron says, "Lord, that might kill someone more faster than a sword." Oh, he's talking about something else. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and if you want me to answer any of their questions or anything, I don't mind taking a quick tangent.
Yeah. So Bubba asks, "How hot would a 1-inch thick flax coat be in the summer?" Jeez.
Well, and this is maybe something that actually got George to write the Game of Thrones the way he did. Most people don't know the Viking period through to the Renaissance, French and Indian War era is actually an ice age. We're actually in a minor ice age.
Okay.
During that period, so it's consistently 5-10 degrees cooler year round than it is now.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, it's heavy. It's like wearing a winter coat in the middle of summer.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
It's hot, and that's one of the things that actually distinguishes the knights, the professional warriors, is they've trained themselves with it, worn it enough to where they're not passing out.
Okay.
Because of the heat and the water loss, they've got their body adapted to wearing it, but hot, like wearing winter clothes in summer for the most part.
Hindsight wants to know if you've ever worn wicker armor.
I have not. I've
What region? Tried. What region is that from?
See if they have a thing. The wicker armor, the wooden type armors that I'm familiar with are Native American. They make them out of rods and weave them out of stuff. And I don't have I don't live in an area that has the best materials for making it out of.
Yeah.
Because our armor is very dependent on having. Well, if I don't have anything, I can weave the wicker out of. I don't have a lot of stuff for that.
Sure.
And without the right materials for that, I just can't weave, and I'm tired of fighting it.
Well, and I think it would be light though, wouldn't it? Wicker armor?
Probably, but just because it's light doesn't mean that it's effective enough to wear. Mm-hmm. If it won't stop a dagger and someone's coming at you with a sword, I wouldn't bother wearing it myself. It would slow me down.
Yeah. So here I've got another question. Oh, this was Hindsight was asking this earlier. So what are your thoughts on the Elven armor from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films? Are you familiar with it?
I am. Give me 1 second.
This is a movie I still have yet to do.
Let me get a better look at it. Let's see, Elven Virtual Armor. Actually, I like it. It's I like it for the most part. Once again, I'd like to test it. It's a type of it's really a type of lamellar. Which,
sure.
I believe lames or lames. It means like strips in Latin.
Okay.
Which is where the things come from. It's a good looking armor. I couldn't say how effective it is. I think it's more effective than some of the stuff we've seen in the show, Game of Thrones.
Okay. Yeah.
Honestly.
You know what? I want to actually, Redwolf, Aaron, who's in the chat right now, we're working on, like, we just did this worst costumes, best costumes we're doing, but we wanted to do a list of armor. Maybe you would help me with that. Like, we wanted to maybe do like the best Game of Thrones armor, maybe the worst Game of Thrones armor. Probably cause like a huge dust up for that, but that would be kind of a fun thing to do. Would that is this anything you've ever thought about where you're like, oh, that armor is really terrible, or this armor is really great?
The best armor, that is, there's a couple of, I would say, tie for worst armor. Best armor in the show, in my opinion, I actually wrote this down, is going to be Stannis Baratheon's Lightbringer armor.
Yeah. I've actually seen other people say that too.
It's a full suit of proper armor.
Yeah.
That covers his entire body as armor should. It's the only. It's the best suit in there. I think my two next closest are going to be the Kingsguard armor, and it's not at number 1.
The first one, like the ones that they wore.
Barristan Selmy.
Oh yeah, Barristan Selmy. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
But he doesn't have anything.
The white cloak.
Yeah, he just doesn't have anything below his shoulders, which are not a good thing for the kind of fighting he's doing. Because this area from about here to about here is one of the primary targets for the period fighting style with the swords.
To cut someone's hand off or cut their arm?
Cut the hand, cut the wrist.
Oh my God. That's pretty violent.
Well, in order to hit somebody,
yeah,
you have to put your hand out here.
Sure, to block them.
Your hand's out here, it's real easy to hit.
So you want to make sure that you're wearing the forearm guard. I don't know the names of them. And the wrist guard.
Well, and see, this is another modern misconception that comes from D&D and comics, which is Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah. Well, your padding coat should go at least to here. Traditionally, mail has a mitten knit into it that goes all the way over your hand. Most mail, when you get to knights, at least, it goes the hood.
Yep.
All the way down to your hands, down to like your calf muscles, is all one shirt.
Okay, so is Barristan Selmy wearing that? Is he wearing the mail?
No, he doesn't have any. He has a jacket on.
Okay.
It just ends, and that, it loses out for little details like that.
Yeah.
And the next closest is going to be Robb Stark, Jon Snow, the King of the North armors.
Yeah, which I love. I adore it.
Super cool looking, and when they have the full thing on, they have the
gorget.
They have
the neck,
ginormous gorget.
Gorget.
And they have the pauldrons, and they have the entire arm set.
Yeah. Now Jon doesn't ever wear the shoulder guards though. Like I know that Robb does.
I know Robb did. I know for sure.
Yeah. So despite the fact that the coat of plates has like these gaps, you feel it's still one of the best ones.
It would probably be my number 1 if it didn't have the gaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it looks cooler than
it looks so cool, doesn't it? Yeah, and then they do have a Gambeson sort of skirt underneath it as well. Like
that's going to be like a knee coat. It's going to be a huge all the way down.
All the way down.
Really good. As a matter of fact, they have these things called jack chains. It's English. Everything's a jack. And a jack is another word for the padded coat that peasants wore. The common man would call it a jack. J-A-C-K.
Oh, okay, sure.
Probably
French, maybe.
There's no. The English are very big. If your average guy named John wears it, they're going to call it a John. It's just traditional
That's my
English.
husband. My husband's Jack, and he's John. Well, so that makes sense. There you go.
Their chain's about this size. You can see the stick right here.
Yep.
And they go here. They put a ring on the elbow. And they put another one right here. And I believe that when I was in Arma, they said that when doing sword play, about 70% of the cuts that should have hit somebody and cut off their arm are stopped by this 2-finger wide strip of metal on the outside of the arm.
Yeah.
It'll literally save your arm just having this little piece of metal tied on here.
Okay, here I've got a few more questions, guys. If you want to ask a question of Redwolf, can you at me so that it gets highlighted? Because I know some of you are chatting too. Let me just see if I can go through that.
If I could throw one out here right fast.
Oh yeah, sure.
From way back before 30-day review.
Yes, he asked one. Is it way back at the front?
Way back at the front. I think the first question he asked about fire arrows.
Oh yeah, flaming arrows. Yeah. Is it how did flaming arrows affect armor? Yes.
If I could get out another book, I could show you what a flaming arrow looks like.
He's got a couple of questions here for you, actually. Okay. Great questions, guys, by the way.
This is going to be from DK's Warrior book. Awesome book. Let me try and find the right page right fast. I made sure to get out my entire collection of reference material.
Yeah. Oh, and Cindy's here. Cindy, you're not too late, by the way. You're just in time. We were really late getting going, so you're totally on time.
Yeah, I'm good at history, bad at computers. It kind of balances out in the end.
Well, you know what I do sometimes is if I have a guest on, we'll have slides or something. But you know, like this is we've just met each other. Redwolf and I are just getting to know each other, and you guys are getting to know him along with us. So
I have the picture ready.
We'll just have to play with it.
If I could see if I could get this to show.
Sure.
The flaming arrow is going to be this one right here. You see it's got this stuff stuck in it?
Yeah, it's the one at the top?
Yes, ma'am. Very hard to see if I can get this closer to the webcam. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, so what they do with when they're smithing is they literally split they make like a bodkin, an armor-piercing bodkin like this. They cut it open with a chisel and hammer on it while it's hot so that it balloons out. And it's just got like 4 little wires. And they'll stick stuff in there. A lot of times they would stick pitch in there, like pine sap, hardened pine sap they've melted. And they'll stick it in there and set that off. And it burns kind of like a really crappy firecracker. Mm-hmm. And they'll fire it. And the best ones only burn, only about half of them will still even be smoking when they get to the other end. Because traveling, well, you know, it's like blowing out a candle, but you're shooting it off of a 200-pound bow.
But that's not really meant to pierce through armor, though, is it?
No, it is absolutely horrible. If I was going to pick one arrow to never hurt the guy I was shooting at, it would be a fire head. They're not designed to penetrate. They're designed to try and keep a match lit 300 yards downrange. And
then what, to set like some hay on fire or some
well, traditionally the roofs in Europe are made out of bundles, like laptop sized bundles of reeds.
Sure. So like the roofs would be thatched or whatever. Is that what you mean? Yes, and then okay. So it's designed really to set the roofs on fire.
It's designed to set the roofs on fire.
Okay, that's a great answer.
Thank you.
I didn't know any
for about
of that.
2 years.
And then he also asked, 30 days was your question here. How is chainmail? Oh, how does chainmail handle stabs, as today's armor doesn't do much for protection? I think he's
okay. So
does it handle stabs? I guess this depends on the type of chainmail or mail. I think it's the proper name, right?
Chainmail. It's not technically a chain. So a chain is something that's like this, and you turn it 90 degrees and bolt another one onto it, weld them together. That's a chain. Mail doesn't work like that, but it's kind of like cuir boulet, or however y'all say it. I've got a Louisiana French accent.
No, that's how I've heard people say it. I don't know, cuir boulet.
Okay. But mail has a bunch of rings linked together, and it's actually designed for stopping thrusts. getting up. But mail, excuse me, mail in of itself just means armor in Old French.
Okay.
So we call it mail because that's what we're used to. But it works in modern parlance, but historically it just means armor.
Okay, and it can be and how? So when you say thrust, what does that mean? Like or stabbing?
Yes,
like,
ma'am.
Would it or would it or like so? If the point is going in forward or as opposed to on an angle? What is it best for?
It evolved in a time period where people were throwing spears. Your guy on the ground was stabbing at horsemen with spears, and where a lot of your enemies are firing bows at you. So a thrust is any kind of attack where they're not cutting at you. They make any kind of stab. The thrust is what that's called. Mail is specifically designed to do that. It's great. It's almost impervious to slashes, but it's designed to fight stabs, thrusts.
Sure. Okay. And then often
technically, I think a thrust is what you call a stabbing attack.
Sure.
The actual,
so and Redwolf, do you wear the mail over the gambeson or under the gambeson?
Depends upon the time period and the location.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
A huge argument. I think what ends up happening is poor knights like to wear their padding over it, so any blow that wouldn't make it all the way through the padding won't hurt their mail.
Okay.
And rich guys like to wear their padding under it because it's more effective. That's a personal theory.
They can afford to have their mail replaced.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you know, yeah. I'm worth $1 billion and I spent $100,000 on this. Make me a new one. Give me 3 spares.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so Bubba asks, what's the name of that armor piece they utilize to prevent armoring legs in the show? Like an overcoat that's padded fabric or quilted leather. Isn't he talking about a gambeson then?
It's probably talking about the gambeson.
Yeah. But I don't know what he means by, Bubba, I'm not sure what you mean by armoring legs.
I would if he's gonna reference the show, I'd have to have a specific armor I could look up.
Bubba, maybe you could just tell us, if you're talking about Game of Thrones, just tell us the character, and then we'll probably have a better idea. Amber says, I'm not sure what. Oh, Cindy had a question. Oh, Heidi says, what are all the layers from skin to outermost layer for some different armor types? Okay, so is she asking maybe like, do they start with a tunic, or I don't know, maybe that's what she's meaning, or what we were sort of talking about.
I can actually use Game of Thrones for a perfect example of this.
Sure.
The mountain that rides, which is Gregory.
Yeah. What season though?
Well, any season. His book description.
Okay, sure.
Is he wears a tunic, over which he has his padding, over which he wears leather, and there's an argument sometimes the leather might have been used instead of padding with the armor. There's a lot of debate on that. So
it'd be like a leather gambeson of sorts.
Either a Lambert gambeson. You see them wear this in the like you'll notice.
Jamie wears a leather one.
Jamie wears that a lot. That's going to be their take on that, which comes from our best bet for that is like a Roman submaris. Okay. Submaris. But they might wear leather under because leather's harder to cut through than. There's theories. Let me not digress too far. But it would be tunic, padding, leather, mail, brigandine, plate.
Okay. Oh, so the plate is over the brigandine.
Depending upon your time period. And an important thing, it's not like modern armies where everybody gets issued this set of equipment. These are a bunch of guys who know they have their own bank account and their own things they're good and bad at, and their own things they're worried about.
Sure. So
they're all buying and wearing things that suit them. And frankly, like the mountain that rides in the show, can you imagine trying to cut through a suit of plate, a suit of mail, a brigandine, a suit of leather, a suit of padding to try and cut the guy.
Yeah, it would be impossible.
It'd be pretty hard. A lance might could do it off of a horse.
Yeah.
Lances are awesome.
Well, now, so yeah, so for instance, but now I can't recall, but during the journey or the tourney, sorry, of the hand, he is he wearing a different type of armor there? Is he wearing like jousting armor?
Well, you asked me what you asked me in the questions. What's the heaviest armor?
Yeah,
and the heaviest armor is actually jousting armor.
Okay,
because it becomes a sport, and they know they're trying to survive the impact. So instead of worrying about something that they could wear every day for 6 months, something that they had to get, if they got knocked off a horse, they'd have to fight in or get back up on a horse their own, which is war armor. They start making tournament armor to try and keep all the nobility alive during the jousting and stuff, the training.
Sure. So they would need someone to help them up on the horse then, I guess.
A lot of them. But that is in part because turning armor can be twice as heavy as war plate.
Mm-hmm.
No, they just, I mean, just the thickness and all kinds of stuff. But I've seen people in armor do it. I actually got some of it on a video. But they could put on their war armor, and a favorite thing of at least English knights to do to impress ladies, they put a siege ladder up on the wall of a castle, and they'd climb up it backwards with just their hands, like watching Ninja Warrior with them doing the salmon run.
Yeah, and the girls would all be like, "Ooh, so handsome."
Yeah. Oh my God, look at him. He's wearing 50 pounds worth of metal and climbing up that thing.
Yeah. Now I have seen some fancy armor, just like just some museum exhibits. But what did you think of Loris's armor? Is that, do you think that would have been a thing?
Loris actually has a good suit of plate.
But his tourney armor though, like that, with all the flowers on it and everything. Would that have been a thing?
Honestly, and I made a note to be sure and say this at some point tonight. The show could probably turn it up 2 or 3 notches.
Oh, really? That's interesting. So they've actually toned it down a bit.
Well, they have a budget.
Yeah.
and we have an idea of what knights are supposed to look like. It's very common to paint your armor. I mean, you every knight wants you to know, I did this. And so everybody has their own way of doing just about everything. And, I'd like to paint all the right sides of all of my armor blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where would the colors come from? Would that come from your house sigil?
Or personal taste.
Okay.
Because of the slight amount of fantasy in the setting, I couldn't give you I don't think George has ever come straight out and said, well, in Dorne, they do personal colors, but in the Stormlands, everyone does to the local house. So I couldn't give you a specific on the setting, but a lot of times, and you asked me about something that's missing in the armor that's inaccurate on the show. The biggest thing they are missing in the show, which answers your previous question about the personal stuff, they're missing surcoats.
Okay, yep. Yeah, which is kind of like, maybe you can explain to people what that is.
A surcoat is a armor covering, depending upon the season and the location, is made of several different materials, wool, silks, and it serves several functions. The first one being it keeps the sun and the elements off of your armor. There's a lot of guys, you walk out in a tin suit and you bake because it shines right on the armor. But traditionally, you literally put a cloth shade over your armor so it doesn't overheat. The same thing is like when you put something in the window of a car to keep the inside from getting hot.
Yeah, and I always think of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail when I think of that type of thing, right? Like, and they've got like, they might have their heraldry on it or something.
Right, and the second thing is to put your heraldry on it. And a lot of times you have like up on the breast or something like that, you'll have your Lord's house or Game of Thrones, your sigils and stuff up here. If you are a household knight, which is, instead of being all the people in all of my lands who are knights, these are the guys that are so good I take them with me to King's Landing, like Ned Stark did. These are my guys. My guys will probably wear my colors because that tells everybody these are my guys. These are my household troops. These guys, when I send them on an errand, they speak with my voice. When they're on the battlefield, they're the guys that are going to bring me personal glory because they're wearing my colors.
Yeah. So now in Ned's case, they're not wearing his colors, but they are wearing there's the Stark armor style, right?
The Stark armor. That's kind of that's the direction the show went with it for sure.
And then they would have the flags, the banners.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I was doing a little bit of research about the Japanese samurai. They would actually have the banners stuck down their back, like into
they had it too. And that is a facility of the fact that the pre-Mongolian invasion method of warfare for Japan was to ride out at the two armies would meet, they'd ride out, they would read an opponent's symbol or his name on his flag, challenge specific people to ride out and exchange archery shots at them while they had a poetry throwdown. They'd make up poems on the spot.
Oh, really?
Dissing the other guy
and
telling him how much better I am than you are. So let's fire arrows at one another.
So that scene in Monty Python is true then.
Yeah, I mean, like stuff like that happened. That's
so funny.
History is stranger than fiction. There are crazy stuff.
I love that. Aaron has a question he wants to ask you.
Yes,
he says, is leather weave armor a real thing?
No.
Yeah, so I guess he means like, I don't even know what that is.
If he's talking about the style that looks like basket weaving.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's not a real thing. It looks really good.
Well, a lot of them I've seen, and I think this is more contemporary. You sometimes see like leather gets tooled with a basket weave texture.
Because everyone knows how to make jackware, like we talked about. They don't really know how to make armor, and no one's willing to stand out there and get cut like I have.
Yeah.
To prove whether or not the armor actually works.
Oh, have you used yourself as a guinea pig?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh dear. How does your wife feel about that?
Not the happiest in the world.
Yeah. No kidding. I think a lot of us do that stuff. I think I think any of us who are in any type of profession, we always use ourselves. I mean, certainly I have.
I figured out some really
but my work isn't dangerous.
My current test medium I figured out. I actually make 2 liters of Jello because it's pretty cheap and it has that texture. And I put a sapling that I cut down sapling and put a dowel in there, and it's a real poor man's flesh substitute. And with the armor over it, it reacts properly. And with the stick sticking in the middle, you can anchor it to a spot so it has resistance. And it works pretty good, and it's a lot safer than my years of experience with trauma care.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay. Okay. So then Aaron. Okay. So we answered Aaron. Sorry, guys. We're just trying to go through. Like Jamie wears a thing like a leather skirt, but no armor under it. Yeah. So that's part of that's part of his leather coat, guys. So the skirt is actually attached to the jacket. Actually, you'll see sometimes he wears it without the armor on top of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like an extra long jerkin.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and it would serve as light armor for like somebody in the street tried to mug him. It'll probably stop a couple of dagger strikes, but it won't stop a dagger piercing. Daggers, literally designed to be held upside down and to stab into armor.
Sure. Okay. And then Heinz. Oh, sorry. Heinz says he's got to go. Okay, we'll see you soon, honey. Okay, bye. Pretty Dark. He said his battery's dying. Pretty Dark says rap battles with arrows.
Yeah, exactly.
Bubba says poor man's ballistics dummy.
Yeah. But the talk about the rap battles with arrows right fast.
Yeah.
Knights actually do stuff like this.
Sure.
Why the English talk about the stupid French, but they traditionally do this. They'll go out before a battle sometimes the battle gets postponed by up to a week. In some cases, particularly smaller battles, where the individual knights are running out there and throwing down against one another, just talking smack, and then running at each other with lances.
Okay, just because they're bored.
No, it's all about the personal glory. It's all about
okay. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you watch Outlander at all, but like it's these Scottish guys, right? And what they do is in the off time, they just kind of beat the shit out of each other. Like
They'll
just kind of get out, they'll take their shirts off, and then they'll just sort of like go at each other, like they're friends and family. What's that?
Yeah. Shirts are expensive in the time period.
Yeah, so they take off their shirts and they still be wearing their kilts, and then they just sort of beat the crap out of one another. And of course, the women get like Claire gets really mad because she doesn't understand it.
Well, and the thing is, and I can tell you this, like I was just talking about with the experiments and stuff. It's the only way to get good, and the only way to get in the mental game is to play at it. I mean, playing is even wrong, but to go at it, it takes constant. It's like
roughhousing.
It's like Olympic athletes.
Yeah,
they're constantly training. They're every time they get a couple of minutes, they're going at it, because when you get to that level, the guy who put 5 minutes worth of training less into it probably loses.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime they get an opportunity, let's fight.
Yeah, because it would be really strange I just can't even imagine what it would be like just to all of a sudden, like, okay, we're going to battle, and like just sitting around and waiting. That it does seem kind of like an odd thing to expect of your troops or your soldiers.
Especially guys with their blood up. They're ready to fight.
Yeah, you have to get that momentum and that
well, and a lot of battles historically are won because the guys were ready to fight, and there was no stopping them. So the guys were fighting now because the guys are ready to fight. And there are American Civil War, Stonewall Jackson took like 17,000 men, beat an army, beat 5 armies, none of them smaller than 25,000 men, over the course of like a week, 2 weeks. Beat 5 major battles against 5 different generals with 5 different armies.
Wow.
What they steadily, he started off with 17,000 men and lost men in each battle because they were ready to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, it'd be better to wait for reinforcements, but these guys want to fight. And they went there and they wanted to fight. They wanted to win more than the guys they were fighting. And a lot of warfare, this is why you hear about like armchair generals.
Yes.
On paper, these guys should have won. But the other guys who showed up were there to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are here and they just showed up. And mentally, they get steamrolled.
I have someone who says, his name's Niall. Hi, Niall. Says, wow, sick katana collection. He's talking to you.
Thank you.
Do you have a katana there?
Let me look.
Maybe you can just tell us what you have there.
Let's see. A lot of these right now are cold steel. I have I go out like we talked about, and I'll spend a week out in the woods. It's made me a very serious tester of equipment, because there's no use carrying something that weighs 5 pounds if it's going to break on you in 2 days, and it's the only thing that'll do the job. So these are things that I'm either in the process of testing or stuff that I've tested and not broke. And I've probably broke somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 worth of swords in the past 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard.
Now, these are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I could,
ones they are, like, you want to go from the top to the bottom?
Well, the top right here is a, I forget who makes it. It might be Purple Heart Armory. That is actually a great sword waster, which is a wooden training sword.
Okay.
That I like. I'm a big guy. It might not be too easy to tell in this chair. In order to do long sword techniques, which use a handle about this big, I have to have a handle about that long to do it.
How long is that sword?
I believe it's 53 inches overall.
Yeah. So would that wouldn't be anything like ice. That would be a bit smaller than ice.
Yes, well, a lot of the historical swords that ice is based on are between that size and 6 inches a foot longer.
Okay.
And ice might even be talking about ice. Might even be based on a ceremonial sword, which were super like double, triple size swords that the mercenaries would carry in front of the company as a banner, instead of an actual fighting weapon. But down here at the bottom, I have an English backsword, which I use for my Highland, some part of my Highland reenacting. It's from about 1550 to date, really, but it's a single edge version of the Highland sword.
Okay. Oh, Niall says he has a Daito. Is that how you say it? A Daito himself? Daito. I guess that's Japanese.
Yeah, Daito. That should be the practice one. Yeah.
Daito.
I'd have to get caught up a little bit. Japanese has some very similar sounding words that go anywhere from the practice sword to the full set of real swords. There's like 2 letters worth of difference.
Well, because with a katana, you would have a smaller sword, wouldn't you? Like that's what I think
that would be the usually you would have a in the late period in particular, you'd have a wakizashi, which is around the size of a machete.
Okay.
For using indoors. The katana was used outdoors, and the wakizashi is the backup of that. Or they might carry, we're known for carrying a pair of daggers, which is the tanto. So usually you had
they would use double-handed, like they would have a dagger in each hand and fight like that.
It probably had one for in case they lost it.
Sure. And would that be ninjas or would that be samurai?
There's a lot of argument as to whether or not ninjas, as we think of them, really existed. Like spies, we know they had, but a lot of the stuff we know in the historical document was done by a ninja, was a samurai. It was like a Roose Bolton. It was a samurai or a lord that you paid to go into the castle and start a fire, or a guy that you paid to open the door. You know, like the cat's paw that goes after Bran.
Yeah, like I was thinking, like it could be like a mercenary.
Yeah, it's
or a retired maybe, or someone who's left being a samurai. Although I suppose, well, a Ronin I think is an outlier, kind of like a
samurai translates as duty or to serve. To be a samurai, you have to be actively sworn to a lord, daimyo.
The daimyo, So whereas the ninjas could have just been a hired gun kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was like a lot of the places where ninjas come from are just peasant areas without a lot of lords.
Sure.
They were just people who were living and decided to stop people from attacking them. That happened a lot. If you want to collection?
Sorry. Go ahead. And sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So my next one right here is a Grossmesser, which is a German. It translates as big knife. According to German law, it's not a sword if it doesn't have 2 edges. So no matter no matter how big the knife is, if it doesn't have 2 edges, it's not a sword.
See, I didn't know that. That's very cool.
So they have these messers. They have Grossmessers, which are the size of a long sword, which terminology.
Sure. So what period would that be, Redwolf? Like
1300, 1350 to 1600 or so. But it's a full 2-handed sword, about a foot of handle and about 3 foot of blade. And they have a version called a Kriegsmesser, which means war knife, which is about the size of ice. They get up.
Oh wow!
They get up huge. They're for cutting through pike walls. Yeah. They're described as having an effect similar to a modern chainsaw when slicing through spear halves.
So they're not really for people. They're intended to sort of like get through like some kind of structure, like a door or.
Well, they evolve. The biggest version, the great sword, actually evolves in the time of pikes and early matchlock muskets. So what the guys with pikes do is there's just like 200 guys standing 4 or 5 deep, sticking 20-foot poles out in front of them.
Sure.
And you just can't get you know, your standard Viking age spear is like 8 foot long. You just can't get close enough to touch them.
Yeah.
So they come up with these 5+ foot swords for cutting through, like a guy trimming a thicket today. You have another question?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, sorry. Bubba had said espionage. I can't even say it. Mercy espionage, like mercenary espionage. Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Let's see. Next up, I've got a. This one's a cold steel bearded axe, the Viking axe, Viking hand axe. I think is the model, but it's a bearded axe like the Vikings used, and I got it to test the pattern.
I was doing a little bit of research on that because Keith Urban,
actually my favorite one.
Yeah, Keith Urban uses one like that in Thor Ragnarok, except it's really oversized. Like I saw it at the exhibit. Like it's you know,
it's
like
been Marvel
this big.
Comics.
It's been Marvel Comics, but I was looking up what real bearded axes look like. So those now, how would you use that weapon?
I'll try and put up a video.
Okay.
Sometimes it's axes. We don't have a lot of surviving manuscripts with anything about axes in there.
Sure.
And I personally prefer fighting with axes than fighting with swords. But it's really hard to find somebody to fight against you when you have an axe. Because axes, like swords, have techniques and stuff they can do to control stuff. Axes either hit you or the guy with the axe gets stabbed. There's not a lot of middle ground playing with them. Yeah,
I think Matt did a demonstration. He kind of was swinging it above his head, right? Like he was kind of like full on engaged with that, as opposed to a sword, which I think is from what I see oftentimes.
Swords you hold in a stance and wait for an attack.
Sure.
Yeah, swords are more stable. Axes kind of have starting positions that you can throw an attack from. Swords normally, particularly European martial arts, you normally try to block and then counterattack.
Okay, so that axe is so the head of the axe is like steel, and then the handle's wood.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They're steel and wood.
That's very cool.
And the thing I like about the bearded portion,
you can hook with it.
You can hook with it, and you get a lot more surface area of cutting. This is margin of error. So instead of having like a tomahawk like this that has the same weight as this, I've got a couple extra inches of cutting surface to work with. Yeah.
Now that other axe you have there, so can you remove the head of the axe off of there and slide another one on? Is that how it's designed? So you can change up the head?
I can, but I don't like to.
Oh, okay.
Because the only thing holding them up, I can show you this. There's nothing holding these in. Just when you hit, the centrifugal force pulls the head higher up on the handle. And if it's not on there tight, you have to go through some effort to make it tight again, so it doesn't rattle and bounce off.
Sure.
The head can slide off the handle when you don't want it to.
Yeah.
If you don't have it on there tight enough.
Now, do you sell that type of thing at your shop?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you do? Okay. So where do you get a lot of your do you get them from collectors? Do you get them, are you able to buy new ones from suppliers?
When I can find stuff at a decent price, I buy it from people when they have it. Not a lot of, particularly around here, not a lot of people want to get rid of their heritage collectibles type stuff. Well, and a lot of the stuff is going to be like American Civil War stuff that should have been turned over to the Union when they surrendered. This is stuff that.
Oh, really? They weren't allowed to keep it?
Oh no! Traditionally, you turn over, particularly your swords.
Okay.
They followed the. I think even to this day, the U.S. Army follows the tradition that if you are issued a sword, when you surrender, you surrender your sword just like a medieval knight.
Sure.
And a lot of particularly Confederate cavalry sabers, if you find one with a family, they're unreconstructed. They never surrendered to the Union. They ran away and hid, and came home and pretended like they never joined the army.
Oh, okay. Tatiana says, I made it. Hi, Tatiana. She goes, luckily I got out of work early.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad you're here. We're having a really awesome conversation. I'm so glad you're here. So what's that really long thing you have that looks like a fishing pole on your
let's see, right here.
The really long one. Yeah.
That's actually a hickory bow.
Oh, it's a bow.
Yes, ma'am. 6-foot hickory bow.
Wow. So, and so how you probably can't show us how that works, but
not and keep it in frame.
Yeah. What about the one above? Oh, sorry. Did you make that, or did you find that, or where did you get it?
I've made some stuff before. I have a wooden bows these days normally price at between, particularly solid wood bows, normally price somewhere between $600 and $1,200-$1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Really is the price range. I found a guy who makes these, and I sell them for a little under $200. They're American made. They're solid hickory.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to. They're self bows. There's nothing to go wrong with them. There's no fiberglass or anything glued on that can pop off because of the weather.
Why hickory? What's good about hickory?
It has the proper. It can take the strain of being bent.
Okay.
But it's springy enough to bounce back into shape, which is what makes the arrow, which gives the arrow the speed at which it flies off the string. Mm-hmm. And arrow speed is what it's all about.
So now, would a bow like that be based upon, again, the person's height? Like, so you would have a very long bow because you're tall, or how does that work?
The English military bow typically tries to be 6 inches taller than the man wielding it, though most bows today shoot for around 6 foot. And that has to do, I believe, Mr. Mike Loads, he's a British, he's a PhD, but he's an expert on this. Very nice guy, actually. He has a, Mike Loads has a website, and I've actually got some help on some stuff before. He has a like instant messenger type thing on there, and he's answered me several times with some questions I had about some details on knights and stuff like that.
Is he on YouTube, or where'd you find him?
He does a lot of documentaries for the History Channel.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
National Geographic and stuff. Yeah. And he writes books. I believe it was in his book of the longbow. He was talking about how they made them, the shape of an English bow and the height isn't necessarily a function of adding more poundage or more speed to the arrow. It's actually a function of making a robust bow that can take the repeated strain of years of use firing at war speeds, which incidentally, an English archer is supposed to be able to basically hit, they shot at what we would now like a yardstick you would use for measuring fabric.
Okay, yeah.
At 200 meters. And you had to be able to hit like within like a pie tin of it in order to be taken on campaign and paid as an archer.
Mm-hmm.
And they had guys who could fire a shot every 2 or 3 seconds and hit a modern meter stick, you know, at 200 meters. Hit it 9 times out of 10. Matter of fact, there's some, I've read some stuff of a particular guy who did that touring France and making a killing getting paid by the French nobility to show off English marksmanship.
Oh, Redwolf, I just want to say hi to or not, because I said hi to Tatiana. I didn't say welcome or not. Sorry, I don't know if you're a guy or girl, but welcome.
Also,
go ahead.
Thanks everybody for putting up with me.
Oh no! Oh my God! Everyone's really enjoying this. But Bubba said, I saw a documentary when the Ridley Scott Robin Hood came out, and how much the bows cost. That stealing the bows when they left the army would have made them enemies of the crown. Does that sound true?
It's at least a couple of weeks' pay
Yeah.
for a cheap bow, like
Yeah.
a crappy bow they wouldn't care about too much. And I mean, and just it being crown property
Yeah.
would have been a big thing. Now, a lot of English archers though brought their own bow, depending upon the time period and some stuff. A lot of times you have to show up. You have to be able to bring your own bow, 2 or 3 bowstrings, and your personal sheath of arrows, I think.
Okay. Now, so the one you were saying that's $1,200 or thereabout, like, how long would that last you? Would that last you a lifetime if you took care of it?
The bow?
Yeah. Like you were saying, there was one that's really expensive.
If you take care of it, and this is a function of bow wood as opposed to medieval anything. I believe a bow will hold its poundage, which is the draw, the weight it takes to bend it back. Average bow will hold that somewhere between 7 and 15 years, and a good bow might only lose 2 or 3 pounds of draw weight every like 5 years after that. It's minuscule.
Oh, so you can still use it then. You could still use it for a while.
Right, and in all likelihood, what happens is as you're shooting this, and they made them shoot in England every Sunday. They have to spend 2 hours shooting every Sunday by law.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a 150-pound bow that you've shot for the past 10 years. You can probably pull back a 170-pound bow now. So a lot of guys just work their way up to more powerful bows instead of replacing the bow at the same pound draw weight.
Yeah. Now this is a question I'm really curious about. So there's a new Robin Hood movie coming out. Did you see the trailer?
I have not. I saw something saying there was going to be one yesterday, but I haven't looked at it.
It's with Tegan Edgerton, I think his name is, and he was in anyway, it like, well, Matt from Skull and Gladiatoria did a thing on it. It was really funny, but I'd love you to see it and to find out what you thought of it, because there's a lot about, of course, the arrows in it. Now, but I did just see the Ridley Scott Robin Hood, and I thought that was really well done. Have you seen that one?
I love that. I own like 2. I think I own the original, and then I think I got an extended copy.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm not, again, I'm not an armors expert, but like it seemed like there's one scene where actually he's changing. He's with Maid Marian, and he's changing out of his mail.
That's what
and
squires
she has to help him. Yeah,
that's what squires are for.
Because you can't get out of it yourself, right?
Right. It's very difficult. And see, by around the Crusades period, and possibly a little after the Crusades, what they start doing is the Gambeson starts turning into an arming doublet. It gets shorter, and they start wearing leg. Once they started figuring out how to do leg armor, the Gambeson quits reaching all the way to your calf muscles. They start having individual pieces that they have eyelets and stuff that they tie together. But the arming stuff, they start having I'm forgetting the. Sorry, my brain is suddenly awash with medieval terminology. They start tying tabs, strings, to pull through the armor, the mail, and tie the mail into
points?
certain spots.
Is that what you're looking for?
The points. Thank you.
No problem.
They start on their arms, the places where they either want the mail to stay flatter at, or places where it'll help them move more freely. They'll start tying the mail down, and once you get to that point, you literally can't untie stuff in between your shoulder blades yourself.
Yeah.
So the knight's just stuck in it till someone gets him out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So you love that movie. You thought it was pretty good. I just watched it a couple of weeks ago when the new one was announced. But what are they doing in the new one? And I mean, this is the thing, right? It's anachronistic. Like, they've got a lot of contemporary thing. Their costumes are just kind of ridiculous, really.
Is this the one where the guy's firing arrows like a machine gun?
Yeah, it is. And there's actually explosions in it and stuff. And it's Jamie. Guys, maybe you can tell me in the chat. Jamie plays Jamie Foxx. Yeah, Jamie Foxx plays what's his name? Friar Tuck, I think.
That is all based on one guy on YouTube's videos.
Really?
Where he shoots Lars Anderson, A New
Okay.
Understanding of Archery, I believe is the video, where the guy is shooting a bow that a 7-year-old could shoot. The poundage is so low. Maybe even a 5-year-old. Matter of fact, my 5-year-old has shot a bow around the same poundage.
Well, I mean, the one thing that Matt was talking about, though, is the arrows, though, when they're shooting out, they're so wobbly. They're like, wong, 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 wong,
Well,
wong.
that's
Like they would just like kind of, they're floppy, right?
That is called the archer's paradox.
Okay.
Because you shoot a bow like this, and the arrow is sticking out like this, and as the string goes forward, it makes it bend back around, and it fishtails in the air until it straightens out.
Oh, okay.
Matter of fact, inside like 15, 20 feet, you can actually miss your target when you're aiming at because the arrow hasn't had time to flatten out.
Oh, okay. Like correct itself.
Right. And that is going to be in the movie. That is going to be because they have a super heavy arrow. They've got a heavier arrow that's too long for the bow.
Yeah.
And when he shoots it off a super weak bow, you can tell it does because it'll never straighten out. That part of archery is a complex, arcane science.
Yeah,
it's alchemy.
Sorry, Bubba says you needed the right length or branch yew bows cut exactly the right way. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am. Bows are very extreme, and actually, this is something I think once again, if it's not Mike Loads, I'll have to dig through my archery references and maybe come back on and correct myself sometime. But by the time of like Henry VIII or Henry V, somewhere in there, when longbows are proven by like Agincourt, some of the famous English battles.
Yes.
Only like 2 in 5, somewhere between 2 in 5 and 1 in 10 bows are actually made out of yew. Yew is a preferred wood, but a lot of them are made out of oak and elm and ash and other woods.
I don't even think in Canada we have yew trees. Where are they located in Europe?
In Europe, and they've cut a lot of them down. What we have, the Ozark Mountains in.
Okay. Yep.
That actually comes from the early French, and there's a tree called Osage orange. That's very is
that like
similar.
Osage County? Like Osage is a type of.
Yes, ma'am. It's a type of wood. Very similar properties to yew. Actually comes from the French called it Bodark, which the Americans called Ozark.
Oh, okay.
And the translation would be they called that mountain strip the land of the wood of bows because it has the Osage orange or Bodark as they call it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's
and then Tatiana wants to know, she says, I know Asian bow makers historically use bamboo to make them cause the wood was so springy.
Right. And as a matter of fact, they still use bamboo right now instead of steel for scaffolding because pound for pound, bamboo is as stronger than steel.
Yeah, I mean, we're even seeing bamboo used in like so many modern applications now. And also it's renewable, right? So you can, it grows like a weed.
We finally discovered that the Victorians were not always correct in saying just because it's old means it's bad.
Well, one of the things I learned is like, for instance, cutting like wood cutting boards, like, we've all switched to like plastic or, resin. Wood is actually antibacterial apparently. And that's why a wood cutting board, it would have been just a naturally sterilizing surface.
Tannins and
tannins,
and hardwood.
Yeah. Like, in fact, I'd heard that there was this one culture, they used to like chew on tea tree and they never got cavities because of the antibacterial properties of the tea tree.
There's a lot of cool stuff like that.
So there's not, I know. And like, I this is one of the things I learned. I mean, there is some, obviously in the Dark Ages, there's some things that were probably a little bit backward, but I mean, a lot of civilizations did use a lot of things that were.
What I tell people, especially when medieval medicine comes up, a lot of people go, blah, 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 blah. Look, if you replaced, I have bad humors and there are miasmas with the air. which miasma means there's something in the air that's hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
If you replace the word germ with miasma.
Yeah. Or allergies, maybe even.
Yeah, right. You're saying there's miasmas here that affect my humors. There are allergens here that are making my nose sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All that weird, hokey, it's because it's old-fashioned terminology that we've moved past, that people don't understand that was newfangled terminology that led to nukes and spacecraft.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got a few more comments here. Bubba says something to do with the right layers of wood in the right place to make the bows the strongest. That documentary was on the History Channel, probably the guy you know. Yeah. So you said he works for the History Channel. That historian, Mark.
And if he's talking about you, what you has, there's hardwood and sapwood, which is the sapwood is where the water and the nutrients are coming through the wood and it's growing. And then in the winter, it dies off, that layer hardens, and it just becomes a hard layer that another layer of sapwood grows on the outside of. You, there are two extreme colors. One of them is light yellow and the other one is red. And one of them is extremely springy and likes to come back to shape really quick. And the other one is really hard to pull back, but brittle.
Oh, okay.
So you is naturally laminated. It won't come undone like two pieces of wood glued together can come undone. The U won't do that because it grew like that for 30 years. It's hardened together. It's fused.
Oh, sorry. I want to say how to you do it. How you do it? He's one of my YouTube friends. He has a channel. You do. What's your channel on? I think it's on. Home construction. But let me just reference this. He says he's tired. I'm tired after being out on a boat and didn't get to shoot a video I needed, so that is pushed off. 30 Days says plastic needs to be replaced. A wooden cutting board will last forever if taken care of. Yeah. My dad made me one that I still have to this day. It's beautiful. You made it with exotic woods, and I just have to like oil it once in a while.
Yeah. And a lot of people forget about the oiling.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what kind of maintenance do you need to do on your weapons?
Oiling. So
you do oil. What kind of oil do you use?
Neat's
like tungsten oil or
Neat's foot is.
What is it?
NETS. Neat's.
Neat's. Okay.
It's
maybe
Neat's
30 days. 30 days. He tests mustache products. Maybe. What if he use it on his mustache?
I was blessed with this beard.
Yes, you have a great beard.
I don't have to do anything but cut it when it starts annoying me.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, do you also dress up? Like, do you dress up in historical costume? Like,
yes, ma'am.
Like living history. So, what kind? Like, do you do Viking? What kind of thing do you do?
I like Viking. It's really hard to find people who do stuff. I really like early migration era Viking. I think it was Swedish that I had a particular interest in.
You know what? Like this, you should get your wife to learn how to sew, because this one couple I met, it was great. The husband did the weapons and then the wife did the clothes. And this is the woman that I sort of had cornered, and she was showing me how she did the weaving and everything. And I said to her, oh my God, I have to make myself a Viking tunic. And it's actually fairly simple. So you should, I don't know if your wife has any sewing skills.
Well, my wife is really big into Vikings and I'm really big into Scottish.
Oh, you're into Scottish. Oh, you are. Okay. We should chat then, because when I did my Outlander video, of course it's quite late at 1750, but 1740-ish.
I do French and Indian Scots.
Yeah. So what year is that?
Outlander basically starts leading up to the 1745 Jacobite Rebellion.
Yes.
So Outlander, like the French and Indian War, starts like 2-3 years later.
Oh, okay. So what I did was, when I did my Outlander video, because I'm like, I don't want to. I didn't touch the weapons really at all, but I should totally talk to you.
This might actually interest you.
Sure.
Because I had an Australian fella, Mr. Keith Burgess, set me off on you must have documentation thing. The small kilt, the kilt that people are used to seeing everyone wearing today, versus the great kilt, which is what they use in Outlander. I can point you to some sources that can help you actually date the small kilt a couple of 100 years before it's supposed to be worn. Because
sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just yeah, everyone thinks great kilt 17 like the thing about about the small kilt being a 1750s design comes from the English. After they said an Englishman invented it in Scotland in like 1750, which was 5 years after the English Parliament had banned the wearing of the small kilt.
Yes.
In Scotland.
Yeah, it was funny. Okay, so this is really cool. So I what had happened was when I wanted to talk about Outlander, I'm like, okay, this isn't, I don't know anything about this. So I mean, I know a little bit about silhouettes and stuff. So
it's not a subject most people know a lot about.
Yeah. So I found this woman. She's an historian. She studied in Edinburgh. She's her area is I guess it would be she's a dress culturalist, I think is what she's called. And so she helped me do the video, and she was the one who went over it. So we kind of went through like what is accurate, what's not accurate. And a lot of it was, so the one thing I learned is that the Victorians, for instance, who love their tartans, they they would have like created a tartan that they would say, this is the Stuart tartan, or this is the so-and-so tartan, but actually it's not.
Right.
Yeah. And then for the show they made up the tartans because of licensing and so on. So the tartans, like Jamie Fraser's tartans, not real. But I didn't even touch on the weapons. I would love to like chat with you about that, because that would be a very cool video to do about the weapons.
I've got a ton of info.
Now that I know that. But so your wife is more into the Viking. Like, does she watch the show Vikings by any chance? Do you guys
probably not. My wife gets more in the historical living aspect of things. My wife really likes to just put the stuff on and go do it. She doesn't care who else is wearing it. It's what she likes. It's what she's doing.
One of the things I'd really love to learn how to do, and I think I'm going to try doing it, is the dyeing, like with the natural dyes. And one of the girls that I interviewed, she was telling me how they just, they pee in the pot.
Yeah, you just pee in the pot and let it turn into ammonia.
Yeah, you let it turn into ammonia. And she says,
best way to bleach your whites.
She goes, we just stick our hands in there. And I mean, they do a little thing on Outlander about it too, which is, obviously later. But what's interesting that I found out is like a lot of connections between the Vikings and the Scots, because the Vikings would have traveled, to the different islands. It's quite close. And it looks like a lot of the, like the Shetland sweaters, that type of thing, their techniques would have been really, they would have learned from the Vikings.
The Iron Islands in Westeros.
Yes.
Are based on the Scottish islands. The Scottish homeland, like Alba, Scotland, never fell to the Norse, the Scandinavian Norse, whatever we're going to call them. The Vikings conquered England up to where modern England and Scotland stopped.
Yeah.
And they took the islands and they took parts of Ireland. But Scotland themselves, their Norse influence is through trade and treaty, not through defeat.
Yeah, like they didn't pillage them necessarily. Well, and also I think they went back and forth quite a bit from what I could tell. Now,
particularly the islands.
Yeah. Now, somebody told me recently. Now, I mean, there was a few things with the Iron Islands, like you say, it's based on that. So is it quite rocky there then in this place in Scotland?
Oh, yeah.
So how would they have built ships then?
Or
would they not?
You would be surprised. Even going back into the Stone Age. Late Stone Age, early Copper Age, definitely by the Bronze Age. How many people shipped like logs in from halfway across the world?
Really?
Oh yeah, like you'd find logs shipped in from like one side of the Mediterranean to the other. because they have better logs for making stuff out of.
So would they like lash them together kind of thing and then pull them, or like push them with boats? Like how would they do it?
I don't know. I can make some speculation based on what I know of Gold Rush era Canadian logging.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I know of, like BC logging.
You know, you could probably put a certain number of logs. Like you could probably take like 10 or 12 logs and put it on a completed ship and sail it. You know, you like the Roman Greek, the triremes, something like that. You could probably put you a handful of logs in there, or maybe like you said, tug them behind you if you've got galleys, which are oared ships.
Yeah, because the wood floats. Because the wood floats, right? So it's saying you could kind of use that to your advantage.
Well, the only disadvantage to that is it also gets wet again.
Oh, it gets wet. Yeah, that's true.
And wet wood, when it dries out, shrinks, and thus is not conducive to building boats. You actually traditionally take a boat. I've got a wide range of useless knowledge. You actually traditionally take a boat, build it when the wood is completely dry, and a lot of times even the Vikings would sink it for up to a week, and then drag it back out so the wood fiber soak up water and swell shut.
Yeah. Oh, Tatiana's saying, she told me this the other day. She was at the location where they shot the Iron Islands. But I think what you're saying is that it's inspired by this place in Scotland.
Yes, ma'am. Like the outer islands of Scotland.
Yeah, yeah. As opposed to Ireland, where the location was, but that's not the same thing. So the other thing is, someone had complained to me about the clothing of the Iron Islands. They thought it was really terrible. But my understanding, and I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this before, is they would have taken maybe the sailcloth, the leftover sailcloth, and made their outfits, and then they would oil. Like I think she said that they would wax it or to make it waterproof.
Okay,
like
that is potentially a what they're talking about, and this may be something because a little metagaming here. You know, George R. Martin comes from like the Great Lakes region. You know, he's got books about steamships and stuff. He knows about boats and boat people, and modern fishermen in particular. Everyone who can wears slickers.
Yeah, that's like in the East Coast they call them slickers, but they would or wool with lanolin is the other thing.
Right, the old wool. Well, traditional, and what I would think for the Iron Islands would probably be something more like the sweaters. You know, the woven. I would expect more something with lanolin in it. But I don't know. The Iron Islands are weird, and they'll probably just go kill somebody and take their coat when their coat rots.
Well, they do have a bit of a midi, like a boat neck, like flap at the back, like that's the midi style. But I mean,
probably talking about oilcloth. Probably talking about oilcloth.
Okay, so what is oilcloth?
Which is traditionally made with linseed oil. Well, you can still find
yes, linseed oil. Okay.
They're probably thinking about oilcloth. What I know in the show's versions of the Ironborn leave me with questions.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there I just recognize about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. What did you think of the armor though? I kind of thought it was like hardened armor, right? Like a breastplate.
Actually, it's probably steel breastplates.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I kind of like their breastplates.
I can't remember if they did it in the show, but in the book, because the first thing you do is nobody in their right mind fights in armor when they're on a ship. Though we were talking about the knights climbing ladders backwards.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. There are also a small number of counts of knights swimming in full plate armor.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to swim like the English Channel in it.
Yeah.
But, I know in the books, it talks about the Ironborn choosing to wear armor because they worship the drowned god. And the armor makes them better reavers. And if they fall overboard and drown, they're just going home to the drowned god.
Oh, okay.
Dead cannot die.
Yeah, so it's sort of it's a religious experience.
It's a religious experience to fall overboard and drown.
So Tatiana said, or wait, who is it? Yeah, that way. Okay, let me see. I have to go back here a bit. Okay, so Pretty Dark says the Viking strap dress is remarkably similar to the Cree strap dress. Do you know
Very
what that
similar.
means?
Yes, but I have some patterns for both of them. My wife does.
Do you want to explain that? Because I don't know what that is. Or
It's
for everybody else.
she could do this much better, but
Okay.
it's kind of the way it goes together and ties. It's very similar. And it hangs. They call it an apron because it looks like a model
Oh, okay,
apron.
the apron, yes, and then they would be attached with brooches,
Ma'am,
like at
I didn't hear
the.
that last part.
Oh, would the apron be attached with brooches?
The fins and the scandies, a lot of the Finnish actually used, no, at least the Finns, like to use turtle shells to put something kind of like a hook and eye
Yeah.
over the shoulder, and they like to wear turtle shells right here. But they would either be sewn or they knot them somewhere or tighten them with string somewhere.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's a design that kind of ends up looking a lot like a surcoat from a later
Oh.
period.
Oh, okay.
It may be a direct from that.
Aaron says he would like to make a dress out of dragon scale mail. You know what? Oh, by the way, I found this really cool fabric. It was actually, I think it was Viserys wore it, Daenerys Viserys. He wore, like at season 1 episode, I think it was episode 1 or 2, he wore it. It had like a collar that looked like dragon scale. And I actually found this fabric. It looks just like dragon scale, but it's actually made from fish, like from salmon or something. Yeah, it's like a salmon leather, but it looks like dragon scale.
I've actually, as a little bit of an anecdote here, I found out about that because I'm really into survival stuff.
Yeah.
I like combat and I like survival stuff, and I've learned a lot because I'm one of apparently like 3 people in the world that are ever interested in both. But
Yeah.
I have a buddy that quit doing any of this kind of stuff with me when I was showing him some salmon leather that you can make out of like I found that things talking about how to make it, and apparently the concept
like how to tan it, like you learned how to tan it.
Yes, ma'am. It's a Pacific Northwest Alaskan thing where you actually take salmon skin and tan it and turn it into actual leather the same way you do with buckskin.
Well, I found the supplier, and so Danny, for instance, in I think it's season 1, she's wearing a bodice out of it.
Cool.
It's out of salmon leather, and then but it's interesting because it looks like dragon scale. It's the scale of the fish, and then they can dye it like different colors, right?
That's cool.
I'd love to learn how to do that.
I'm gonna have to look that fabric up.
It might be a bit. I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link. It's very cool. I've never seen it before. Like I was like, this is the first time. Like I'd heard about it. Like they make a comment about it that it's fish leather, and of course a lot of Indigenous people in Canada do that. Like a lot of the Inuit, they do fish and they do skins, and they tan a lot of it themselves still to this day. So because they kind of use everything, right?
Yeah.
So we have this thing up here called. What's that?
And if it works.
Yeah, like we have this fish called Arctic char up here that is a really big thing for the Indigenous people, the Inuit. And yeah, so they use everything. But this one I think is salmon. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. So the one that Viserys is wearing on the collar, it looks just like dragon scale, but it's actually, so that was kind of a fun fact, I thought. Let's see what else everyone's saying. They're being a bit chatty here. Sorry. So I got the Viking strap. Danny said, oh yeah, Tatiana says, yeah, that way you can make a Danny armor. They're having a little chat there. Okay, so Bubba says, all of the costumes in one of my favorite films are unfortunately not historically accurate. Oh, why don't you tell us what the movie is? Now, what do you think about that? Like, I kind of have mixed feelings about that. When you see a movie or a show and like the weapons, the armor is out to lunch, what do you think about that? Is that an issue for you?
Depends upon the movie. Depends upon the intent of the movie. I can't take anything that claims to be serious. I can't take it serious.
Like, for instance, if it's gonna, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, if like we were talking about the Ridley Scott Robin Hood.
Yes.
If they would have been running around in Hell's Angels biker leather, no, I can't forgive that.
Okay, let me give you an example though. What about something like Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio?
I wouldn't be bothered by that. That's not a serious historical
Okay,
drama or
so
whatever.
so you're okay that they kind of modernized it and used modern weapons and stuff like that. You wouldn't have had a problem with that?
You're allowed to do stuff with
Yeah.
fiction, particularly modernizing. If you're talking
Yeah.
about the one with the guns and
Yeah.
interesting
It's
stuff,
like an LA and stuff. Now what okay, now what about something like A Knight's Tale? See, I personally love that movie.
mhm.
But you know, it's
The
very
origins. I
I mean
think of it as the
they've got
origin
like
story of Robert Baratheon. That's
what's that about Robert Baratheon? What's
I
that?
think of it as the origin story for Robert Baratheon because
Yeah.
the actors in there.
Well, Heath Ledger's amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot about A Knight's Tale I like. There's a lot about A Knight's Tale to like. They sped the timeline up on some of the development and stuff, but there are a lot of some of the stuff that they get wrong is only because I've personally read sources that most people haven't read that say that it's wrong.
Yeah, but then they even like put modern music in it. Like there's, you know, there's some clearly intentional things that they're doing that it's not accurate.
But it was
But
tasteful.
I thought they did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
I thought they did a pretty good job.
Well, and particularly for the, and I mean no offense by this. I've been watching a lot of movie review stuff lately. Particularly from like a British filmmaking point of view, very restrained and very well done. A lot of the British stuff compared to like Hollywood is a little bit, they don't have the money and the people to run it as hard as we do.
Yeah.
But I think the core of the movie is solid. They get a lot of the way people act. And you got to admit, this is based on Chaucer's tales. You get little pieces and parts of it in there. There's little. I mean, I'll own the movie. I don't think I would. I would never show it to somebody.
Oh, Tatiana's asking
a historical thing.
Sorry, Tatiana's asking if I asked her question. I don't think I did. Can I ask you it?
Yeah.
This is a pretty fun question. She says, if you could change any armor in the Game of Thrones, which would it be, why, and how? And we've sort of touched on this a little bit, but. So if you could change any armor in Game of Thrones, which one would it be, why, and how?
Okay, well, first off, as a generalization, I've already mentioned surcoats. Nobody's wearing them. It is an essential piece to keep from baking alive.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, the one offense from the show that I can't stand, I hate the King's Landing helms.
Oh yeah, the ones that look Japanese.
The Lannister hats look Japanese to me.
Okay, are you
the Kingsguard
helm? Oh, the gold cloaks.
They look like cloaks. Catfish. They have and you see all this chin that's open on there when like Joffrey takes the throne. You know, they got this helmet. Look at how much chin I've got exposed. You're supposed to be keeping me safe from arrows and lances.
Sure.
And just it's huge. And
yeah, I had someone who messaged me about those costumes. They also didn't like the mail. They have like a mail.
That's Indian.
Indian. Oh, it's Indian. Oh, is it? Yeah.
Matter of fact, those cool. I think they're cool. The helmets that they have a visor that comes up. You can pull them off and stick them in, and it covers your face.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are not Indian. Those are gunpowder era Polish, I believe.
Oh, they Hussar?
Polish, Hungarian, Indian. Yes, ma'am. Something like Hussars. I believe that is in the vein. And some things are personally. There are things that I think are personally stupid looking.
Sure. Like what?
That are just personal choices, and you have to leave some margin of error for personal taste, just like you do with anybody you see walking down the street.
Yeah. Do you have some examples that like this personally that you don't like?
Well, I hate the King's Landing helmets.
Yeah.
Let me see. I wrote a couple of things down in here, I believe. Well, like things in the show, like I don't like the shields from the Reach. Well, it's funny you bring up A Knight's Tale. The shields, you see them when just before Cersei blows everybody up. When,
sorry, they're the ones that are shaped like a kite.
They're like cut off like right here, and they have a big sloop.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are weird. Yeah. But I thought that was for jousting. I think I read.
That is a tournament shield for jousting to give them something to aim at and to put their colors on. That is never intended to even be a war shield, much less a footman's shield. That's not at all what that's made for.
You know, the one thing that bugs me, and this is just a general thing for Game of Thrones, period, is the people who, like, there's a lot of people who never wear helmets.
Yeah.
Like you see,
that is typically a Hollywood thing, so everyone can keep track of who everyone is.
Yeah, and this is what they've said. So the costume designer has actually come out and spoken about this. Also, like, just even with the wildlings and north of the wall not wearing hats, like just that general thing. And she said basically it's taken out of her hands. She has no control over it.
Right, because she's not the armor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she's I mean, she's designing it, but it's taken out of her hands. Like, she doesn't have any control over that.
Like we were talking about with the painting and the stuff, this is where the surcoats come in. Yeah. And I mean, and historically, the Hound's helm that he wears, Gendry's bull helm. I don't know if they ever made it to the show. Helmets like that are how you identify. Like we're talking about, this is how you identify a guy.
Are you talking about Gendry? I don't think he ever wears a helmet. Are you talking about Gendry?
Yes, ma'am. He has in
the book. He does.
He has a bull's helmet that he made. It's actually a major.
Oh.
It's a plot point of some stuff, but stuff like that is normal. Like medieval tournament armor is ridiculous. Some of the more tasteful stuff is what survived to the museums. I mean, like 2-foot unicorns on top of a 3-foot tall helmet are not uncommon. You know, they're ridiculous stuff with weird colors and all that.
Yeah, sorry, I've just got a few comments here. Everyone's getting very excited here. Oh, you guys are awesome. I love this. We're like got the nerds in the house.
Yeah, this is fun.
I love it. It's so fun. Okay, so we're going a little bit long. Just let me know when you're out of steam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever. I could be here till midnight.
Okay, so Bubba asked, rusted iron armor in the Iron Islands. Yeah, so like if it was like, how would that work?
Salt is the death of armor.
Yeah, exactly. So would there be a material that would be like, she has, like, in the show, she has it like covered in leather. She has the actual
leather is dumb because there's nothing that holds water the way leather does.
Oh, okay.
You have to get a fire and cook the water back out of it.
Well, she's from LA, you know.
Yeah.
What does she have to worry about?
In the show, they actually, and I don't, you can see, well, like the Lannister armor in the show, as a clear example you can point to. In the book, they, because you can color Valyrian steel with spell songs in the books, they regularly enamel armor like the Japanese in the books, at least. Which in enameling, you actually put, it's actually like a type of ceramic. It's a paint that you put on and then cook on.
Yeah,
so
like
it's a ceramic coating that doesn't
baked on enamel, like you would have on a pot.
Yes, exactly, exactly that. That's Westerosi armor is often made out of that, but mostly you just keep oiling it. That's why you have 3 squires, and you put them to work every day, making sure all your armor is clean. Matter of fact, you can actually polish your armor until it becomes so thin it quits being useful.
Oh wow! Like if you overdo it too much.
Yeah,
that's kind of like silverware. Like if you clean your silverware too much. Let me just get through the comments here. Bubba says in the novels only Victorian wore full armor at sea was seen as quite reckless. He wanted to go back to his to the water god.
Right. Victorian was a big believer in that. Yeah. And I mean, and Victorian is also one of the high nobles. He's a high lord. You know, he's Balon Greyjoy's brother. He got merged with Euron.
So they don't have him in the show. Yeah, I heard that they cut him out and they just merged him.
Completely. So he's like the Ned Stark of the Iron Islands.
Oh, okay. So he's like a good guy.
No. He's of the Iron Islands. He's honor bound. He's just like Ned with reversed.
Okay.
We rape people, we murder people, we steal all their stuff.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if we drown.
So Pretty Dark says yes. Oh, she's talking about the brooches. Yes, attached with brooches and a householder's chain. Yeah, because when I went to the museum, I saw they had these kind of like, well, they were just called brooches. They do penannular brooches too, I guess.
Some of those.
I love them. I was like, I want to get one. I actually got like this beautiful, like this woman who she works with the guy who designed all the tartans for Game of Thrones. And so he mills the like the tartan fabric over in Scotland. So I got a shawl and I want to get a brooch, like a Celtic brooch, but I was thinking maybe I'll get like a penannular brooch. So how did you make it? Like, did you do it with silver?
No, I'm not a jeweler. I'm working on being a bladesmith. But what I had we threw out a.
You do them with wire, I think, right? I've seen ones done with wire.
Well, actually, I took the springs out of a couch somebody threw out, the actual springs.
That's good.
And
recycling.
I reworked them. Yeah, I mean, they're like stretched out. They're like 5 foot long.
Yeah.
And they're like a 1/4 inch thick.
Yeah, like one of the slave masters, I love his brooch. I don't know his name. One of the slave masters in Essos, like Young Kai or something. He has one. It's a really simple one, like a modest brooch, and it looks like it's made out of just twisted wire.
I mean, like
maybe even copper or something.
And you know, like the boldest fashion statements are simple ones.
Exactly.
They're dangerous.
Oh, Bubba. So Bubba says that the movie that he loved, but sorry, Bubba, did you love this movie, The 13th Warrior? It had historically correct armors, but not all from the same times. All the characters had their own style from different eras. So what do you think of that type of thing?
Incidentally, one of my wife's favorite movies. I get to watch that. I love the book, too.
Yeah.
Michael Crichton's.
Oh, it's Michael Crichton.
Yeah. Timeline is also a movie that got me, a movie in the book. The movie that made Michael Crichton quit selling his books as movies is one of the things that kicked me off around the time I got in high school. But
like Jurassic Park or
Jurassic Park, he did Timeline.
Timeline, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful book.
What is the 13th Warrior loosely supposed to be about?
Michael Crichton retold Beowulf.
Okay, yeah.
Really well done. Historical. If it wasn't for the fact that the armors were all out of time, that would be a problem. And something that he might find interesting, because cannot remember the big blonde giant's name, but he's our Beowulf stand-in, the king. He has a two-handed Viking sword.
Oh, Bubba says it's based on Eaters of the Dead.
Right, Eaters of the Dead, which is a Crichton retelling of the legend of Beowulf.
Yeah.
But they're I don't even know how to talk about the 13th Warriors, like to give a plot synopsis.
Yeah,
without ruining everything. It's good.
Everyone, you should watch the 13th Warrior. We're all going to watch it, and then next time we get together, we'll chat about it.
Yeah. Antonio Banderas is in it.
Yes. Okay, I'm definitely going to see it. Yeah, I love. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
He has a two-handed. It's like a Viking sword with a two-handed grip, which is an anachronism. However, I've been told I've had some researchers starting to leak through that they might have actually found maybe a dozen examples from a certain like 50, 100-year time period that came out of Denmark.
Wow.
So long swords, as we think of them, the two-handed sword, might actually be a Viking invention.
Yeah. Was it a grave find in Denmark? That's where they get a lot of
probably either a grapevine or a battlefield, like a river or something or other.
We have, by the way, we have a sword in Canada that I think has been called out as a fraud, or like it was like it's not authentic. I can't remember the name of it, but they have found because we had Lance Meadow in Newfoundland, right?
Well,
so
I was going to tell you,
yeah,
they found in the past year. I can't verify because I don't have a whole bunch of sources, but I want to say I even saw a documentary about it. There's a lady who was trained to look at maps and satellite photos to find like terrorist compounds on the War on Terror that's been going on for the last 20 years. But she has a degree as an archaeologist.
Sorry, did they use like heat sensors or something? Like, how do they do that?
Stuff like that. I'm not honestly tech enough to tell you. But she's one of a handful of experts at reading them. I believe this past year she found 2 or 3 more Viking sites in Canada and America.
That's amazing.
That had gone unreported because she knew how to read the satellite photos. And then they went there and then did an archaeological sample dig and found like Viking iron arrowheads.
That's amazing.
Some of the distinctive features. Yeah.
I think what happened with this one sword is someone made the sword and it was very decomposed and it just it just wasn't like, I don't know, they ruled it out. It was kind of a disappointment though. Because of course we're in Canada. We have like a ship right now. We've got this ship that's sunk like in the north that they're gonna the Franklin expedition. So that's been the coolest thing up here we've got. I think they made a movie about it, a TV show about it. I've got, Olivia's here. Hello. She says, yeah, in Game of Thrones, they use special effects. So it looks, makes it look like someone is dead, but it's just fake blood. What is she talking about? What are you talking about, Olivia? They use special effects to make it look like someone is dead, but it's just fake blood.
Well, I mean, they don't murder people left and right on there.
Well, they don't murder people on there. Yeah, no, they use all kinds of different. Yeah, they use all kinds of different things. Actually, I did a show one time. It was a police procedural show, and it was really cool. Like so there'd be a crime scene. It starts off with a crime scene, and they would have these like pools of blood. They would be about this big, but they would just be made out of some kind of resin, and they could pick it up and move it. So like if someone's lying on the floor dead in a pool of blood, or they could have several pools, they would just lift it and move it wherever they wanted it. Like, get up. Okay, we're gonna move the pool of blood, and it was kind of like a dark red color. So and then we would have people would be background people, would be the dead people. So they would come in and they would get made up and put on a slab, but it would just be like a background person. And they would be like, but they would get like silent on camera or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty. But I love that pool of blood. I was always thinking, oh, I'd love to get that and just like do a fake out on someone, Let's see what else everyone's saying here. Got such a lovely group tonight. Pretty Dark says she's so into this talk. I think I said that. 30 Days says it was more about the story than about the accuracy. I think he's talking about
13th Warrior. The story was balling.
Yeah, David Bowie was played during the ball scene. I think she's talking. You must be talking about Labyrinth, Tatiana. Olivia says, I don't get it. Do they make night clothes for movies or real life? Well, that's the $100 question, right? They're overthinking. Knight's clothes was just fashion at the time. It was also really heavy and clanky, so that's why people stopped wearing it and start wearing more modern stuff like shorts and t-shirts. Well, this is
actually
okay. Olivia,
that's actually a function of different things.
Olivia, I don't know if you're talking about real life or if you're talking about the movies, but they're totally two different things. Aaron's talking about historical, situations, and then we're just sort of talking about how it applies to movies and television. Of course, people aren't really being killed in movies, and oftentimes, like for instance, in Game of Thrones, the swords may not even be real. They use rubber a lot of the time, or they use, it might be like vacuum form armor. But one of the things I did read, I don't know if you know this, Redwolf, is that I think it's Tommy Douglas is the name of the armor's guy. Might be Tommy something or other. He was saying that what happens is, and this is sort of, I can kind of vouch for this, at least on a wardrobe level, is you'll give someone, like, say, a fake weapon that looks fake, or, that because they're deep background, for instance. So you're like, well, I'm just going to give them that one because they're in the deep background. No one's going to notice, or it's a crowd scene or something. But what always happens is that person in the back ends up in the frame, right? So he got to the point where he's like, I can't do that. I have to make sure that they have something that is, accurate, legit.
Stuff happens.
And I think this is an important thing to point out. Given that it's 2018. So what is a different thing that's happening now, let's say even 20 years ago, is we have high definition television.
Well,
So, and big screens, like wonkin' big screens.
Well, I'll actually throw this out there. HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts. It wasn't up until about 20 years ago with the internet that HEMA really kicked off the organization. Most of the HEMA organizations are from the 90s, early 2000s period. So the experts who were training people were handing out, with your membership, here's historical documents, here's the historical, so here's how they actually did stuff. We had more access. The people who were interested, it's like there's nobody interested in this to my degree in my area.
Yeah.
But I talked to a PhD in California. I talked to a PhD in Wisconsin. I talked to a PhD in England about stuff because I had enough information to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
To be on a similar, to be on a level where they would at least talk to me. And we didn't have access to that. We just had whatever book we could find and could afford to pay for, and then speculation.
Well, and this is a thing also with the internet, right? It's really opened things up
for a lot of wrong information to get passed around very quickly as well.
That's true. But like, for instance, like the Met, which is like, a pretty good museum. They have they have all their, all their collection online. And a lot of it is domain free. What do you call it? Open source. You can share it, you can borrow it, you can use it. But like, for instance, when I was younger, you were saying like, it would be really difficult to be able to contact someone. So for instance, I wanted to contact someone the other day from we have a museum in Canada called the Textile Museum, and it's pretty famous, and they have a very vast collection, and they have a lot of it is online. And I contacted them. I'm like, hey, I was wondering, would I be able to use some of your pictures? And they like got back to me from Twitter. Like I just messaged her on Twitter. Sure. Let me know what you need. I might have to get some permissions. I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to go down there. Like, which I could. I mean,
20 years ago, you couldn't even have gone in there and taken a picture.
No.
Because the pictures damage something about the light damages the material.
The flash, yeah. So like, for instance, we have a museum in Canada called the Royal Ontario Museum, and my stepmother works there. So she takes me down there. She gets to bring a family member for free. So I went in and I was like, we went to see Dior, and I'm like, am I allowed to take pictures? She goes, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, really? Like I didn't think I would be allowed to because of that. But I guess because of digital cameras, they don't harm the artifacts like they used to.
Yeah, it does what it does a different way.
Oh, we got a new person in here, Lady Laura Dane. What a lovely name. She says, hi, just stopped by to say hello and a slap a like, Costume Co. And hello, everyone. Oh, it's so nice to have you in here.
Really talking awesome. About Danes and Dornishmen right fast. You asked me about the worst armor in Game of Thrones. And
you don't like Arthur Dane? Oh, you're going to say Arthur Dane?
No, I'm not going to say Arthur Dane. Though I do think his armor was very poorly fitted in the show.
Yeah.
Joy fight.
Yeah, that was like he was a day player, I think, and they just didn't,
But to the conversation that got us all kind of, me and you meeting, the Dornish armor in the show is terrible. It's okay on its own, I guess, in a fantasy setting. It's not accurate. It's just... it's 25% accurate to its historical source.
Well, you're not going to get a disagreement from me about that. That's the outfit that your wife commented on. Yeah. So I made a list the worst costumes on Game of Thrones, and I had that armor on there, and I'm like, I don't know. Apparently, Michelle had seen some armor, some no, it wasn't Flemish. She saw it in like Florence. It was Indian, I think.
It's actually Sikh more specifically.
Sikh, okay, yeah, and that's why. And then because they wear the turbans with it.
The turbans, the blue dot, they're their own religious, social race.
Yes. And so that's when I said to her, I didn't think it was metal. I thought it was just like leather and cloth. Now,
you were calling it a brigandine earlier.
A brigandine, yeah.
Well, technically, a brigandine is sheets of metal riveted together. Most of their stuff was actually mail with the cloth riveted through it because the rivets do extra damage to sword edges.
Oh, okay. I see. I didn't even know that. For decoration.
Yeah, it's actually like a full. Each one of those pieces comes, and a lot of them come off. So, like, I don't need an extra 30 pounds of armor today. Let me take this whole panel off because they weren't wearing shields. So those giant arm flaps.
Why do they have all the rivets then? To hold the chainmail on?
To hold it in place.
Oh, okay.
Tight.
See, Michelle, they didn't mention that in. They didn't mention that.
She didn't know, well, I looked up the thing you were talking about, and she's talking about just going and having looked at a display, and that's the problem with brigandines that no one understands them. Is they just know that, like, if you play D&D, studded leather.
That's what, yeah. So this is the thing. I know that, and again, I know Scala Gladiatoria goes crazy over studded leather. You know, because it's the studs are there to hold the plates, right? So I think just, she just wanted maybe the look of it, and she didn't maybe have an understanding. So I was quoting her, but I just for me, on an aesthetic level, I didn't like it. I didn't, in terms of it not being useful or good. I quoted CNET about it. They said it was terrible.
Well, see, if I could go on a little
go ahead. Sorry.
The Sikhs and all that.
Absolutely.
The reason why they use mail is really good against piercing damage. Matter of fact, I have a thing here.
Well, what kind of weapons do they use?
The Sikhs are famous for the chakram.
Is that the curved one? The
disc. It's like a frisbee. That's
a frisbee. Blade. Yeah, sure. Okay.
It's an empty. It's a complete circle that's an inch or so wide. That's got an edge on the outside. Well, that's pure slashing damage. And they have another sword that's a khanda, which looks it roughly looks like a Scottish broadsword.
Okay.
But it has an extra little horn at the bottom. They use it one or two-handed in these huge, like, great sword sweeps while spinning. It's a very flowy style that's centered around the fact that they're literally wearing mail armor from toe to head. I mean, kind of like the gold cloaks. They've literally got armor. A lot of times their visors have mail over the eyes because they can see through it like gauze.
Yeah.
And they can see through it. They will completely armor themselves from head to toe, and they spin through multiple opponents because the armor blocks them. That's why they have that loose sleeve. It's like a flapping shield.
Yeah. How is that attached to their arm? Is it just flapping?
It can have strings underneath to tie it to.
Okay, sure.
Or they'll just let it flap, because you got to remember that thing probably weighs somewhere between 3 and 7 pounds, depending upon the thickness of the wire and the mail.
Yeah.
And if they have, like, there's a bunch of different ways to make mail, different patterns that have various weights and toughnesses. But I mean, each one of those, I mean, you strap, 2 bottles of Coke to each arm. They've got a certain hang to them. They're not going very far.
Yeah.
And they might just let the weight do it.
Just because of the gravity or whatever. I was going to say, Lady Laura Dane, she says, so excited going to see George R. R. Martin and get my book Fire and Blood signed in November. The only thing is it's going to be packed and I don't do well with that. Where are you going to see George Martin? That's very exciting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty Dark says, Heidi, did you hear that they redid the Nonsuch Gallery at the Manitoba Museum? No, I didn't. I live in Ontario, but I used to live in Manitoba. I'll have to ask my brother because he lives there.
I want to go to Canada and look at all that stuff.
You should come here. You should totally come here.
Also museums and stuff like that.
Olivia's just still going on about nonsense. I think she's just here to be a bit of a pain in our sides, I think. Tatiana says, I wish they had designed better armor for Arthur Dane. He was the freaking legendary Sword of the Dawn. He looked no better than a foot soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he was going to have enameled armor, he should have had maybe enameled armor.
Hold on. Let me go back to Warriors right fast. I may can show you. I can find this thing. I wouldn't insult a common footman. That armor was pretty badly fitting.
Oh, Laura says she's going to be in Jersey City. That's where George is going to be.
Get this right here. Here's some common footmen wearing some armor. I think I've got the picture in there.
Okay. I can.
They have some well-fitting armor. The red Gambeson jerkin type thing underneath, which is something similar to what Jaime Lannister was wearing.
Yeah, those look a little bit like pikemen or whatever.
Those are pikemen.
Oh, those are pikemen. Picture Japan says Winnipeg represent. Woohoo! I used to live in Winnipeg, so
Yeah.
All right, we got some Canadians in the
Oh,
house.
hey, right here, and this is Mughal, which is going to be Muslim stuff. But this, we were talking about the armor for the gold cloaks. That's the helmet. And here's like the Stannis Baratheon armor. I know it's not showing up, but right here.
Yeah. You know what I should do? I should get you to scan a few of these pictures or just take a digital picture and send them to me. And then next time you come on, I can show them.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
I can put a little slideshow together and we can show everybody.
I've got resources.
How many books on armor do you have? Do you know?
Armor specifically?
Well, I don't know. Arms and armor. How many?
I think I've got my 14 most relevant right here on the table beside me.
Relevant. So what about the non-relevant ones?
Probably somewhere 30, 35.
Wow.
And that's just the books that are here. And I've got a lot of stored knowledge.
Yeah. Now, where did you come up with Redwolf, by the way? I should have asked you that at the top. That's a
complicated
yeah. Is it something to do with your family?
No. The very short version I tell people is I once camped next to a medicine man, and I got some advice from him.
Oh, okay. So is it an indigenous name?
Yes.
Okay. So so it has some spiritual significance.
It has some connotations and some stuff. Yeah.
Sure. I think it works for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Quite proud of it.
Lady Laura Dane says, I love Canada, but she's never been. Canadians are very nice people like you. Aw. However, I'm told it's expensive. Oh, I don't, well.
Our money's worth less up there.
Yeah. Well, if you guys come here, for every dollar, it's 70 cents. So you actually, it's way cheaper for you when you come here. You know what I mean? Our dollar is, it's like our dollar is worth $1.30 American. Does that make sense? So you get an extra 30 cents for our dollar. So if you come here, so our taxes are a little higher, but I think you'll find, like, that's why we can't go to the States unless it's for work, because it's just too expensive right now for us. Mm-hmm. Oh, Olivia's gone.
Y'all come down also up north, and that's where all the really expensive stuff is all up there. And
so Erin had to finally hide Olivia. She was just spouting nonsense. It's probably not even an Olivia. It's probably just a fake name. Yeah. Sorry, I hate to say this, Erin, but I think she was trolling. Pretty Dark says Gimli might have a festival Redwolf and his wife might be into. Yeah. So Gimli, Manitoba is an Icelandic settlement in Manitoba, and it's beautiful. I've been there. We used to have our boat moored there. So it's
sounds
pretty
like
cool.
A place I could get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And then Patrick Martin says Canada is not much a great country. Okay, is this like a grammar thing? Canada is not much a great country. Well, Patrick, your grammar is not such a good thing. So about that. Tatiana says, "Dear God, what did she say?" Yeah, Erin, you'll have to tell us what she said later. I have a feeling Olivia was Oliver. I think he was pretending to be a girl. Yeah, Olivia had to be put away for her last comment. Just, yeah. Erin's like sometimes what happens is in on my videos, someone will say something really, really terrible and he'll go in there and delete it before I have a chance to see it because it's just so awful. But, you know, I have to tell you, Redwolf, that we have actually a really kind community. Like, it's very rare for me to have trolls.
Some really good questions and all that.
Yeah, let me just see. I had a few more. Let's see if I got through everything.
Hey, one thing, I think it might have been Mr. 30. I can't remember his whole handle right now.
30 days, yep.
30 days. Something.
I'm going to start calling him Mr. 30. I'm going to start calling him Mr. 30.
Yeah. About mail.
Yes.
The historical mail, they get a piece of sheet steel, like a legit piece of sheet metal.
Yep.
And they have a stamp, and they stamp a ring out. Then they take a piece of wire the same diameter, take it, push the edges. They flatten them out and push the edges. They overlap the edges. Then they punch a hole They heat it up in the forge, punch a hole in each side of this right here, punch a hole in this one, and then a hole in that one.
Yeah.
Put them together, and then rivet them together with another piece of wire. They hammer them together to where they won't come undone, and they do that in a pattern.
And there'll be different patterns, right? Depending on what they want.
Right. And Ewart Oakeshott, I've got one of his books, The Knight and His Horse, I think is where it is in. It's talking about Richard the Lionheart when he was on the crusade. And they are talking, the knight has been, lances, constant arrows, because what you always see in fantasy is chainmail is just worthless against arrows. I'll tell you why in a minute. Is worthless against arrows and stuff and lances. Chainmail is getting hit by lances and arrows. That's the primary thing that hits it. They wouldn't, if it was so bad against it as to be worthless, why would you wear a 40-pound, $60,000 suit of metal?
Yeah.
If it didn't do you any good. But it talks about accounts from Richard the Lionheart, where in his travel from, I think, such and such to Acre, they walked for 3 straight days with the Muslims traveling beside them. They kept the sea on their unshielded right flank so they couldn't be circled. And they spent 3 days being shot around the clock by Saracen arrows, going into their kite shields and into their mail, into their nasal helms. And they only had like a handful of injuries where someone would accidentally get shot in the eye or a horse would get killed. And because the horses walked around in full padding with full mail covering them to their ankles with a surcoat over the horse too.
Yeah, actually, they have. I think like somebody wanted me to review the costumes of the horses on Game of Thrones, and I'm like, well, I don't do animals, but I did think that they did a good job on some of the like Euron's horse. I thought had a beautiful, like, I don't even know what you call it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back in to do.
Yeah, someone wanted me to review that. I go, okay, I'm sorry, I have to stop it at humans. I don't do animals.
I think Brienne's armor looks pretty cool. Her original
Brienne,
armor when she was going with Renly. That was an interesting fluting and stuff in there. I thought it was
hers is very different than I think everybody else's in the show. So do you know where that would have come from? Like what that sort of based upon?
Italy.
Okay.
There's actually the 2 main styles of plate armor is Italian and German. Italian, Loras Tyrell.
Yep.
The Hound. The more basic stuff. German is famous for being an austere suit of armor. Like, the plainer it is, the more expensive it probably was in German armor.
Yeah.
It's all about this clean goth. They like a chiseled stone look. It's just smooth.
Now is the Sallet based upon the Japanese style helmet?
No, it is. The Sallet is, I believe, Italian once again. See, there's 2. I was looking at my terminology.
The one with the thing that comes out. I can't get my hands even. It's got a thing. It's got like a dome, and then it's got a thing that comes out.
The flare. That's flare actually
or a pot helm is what's it called?
The European, the period European. Okay, so the Renaissance was kicked off by some guys falling into a cellar and finding the Odyssey.
You mean the book, The Odyssey?
Yeah, like the Iliad or the Odyssey.
Homer's Odyssey.
It had been lost since Rome. They were remodeling the city in Italy, and they fell through a cellar and found it sitting there with some other books like the stuff on like Euclides. They found some stuff on math.
Yeah.
Algebra stuff. That's what kicked off the Renaissance. So in Italy around this time, everyone's going, hey, let's go find some old statues and stuff. We should wear stuff like the heroes of Troy. Yeah. And so maybe the Kingsguard, those helmets are possibly a barbute, B-A-R-B-U-T. Yeah. And it's supposed to be a Corinthian helm. It's supposed to be the ancient bronze helmet.
Well, yeah. So the barbute does look like Corinthian, like you're saying, or Etruscan or whatever.
It is what a Italian from 1500 thinks that a Bronze Age Greek helm looks like.
Oh,
Is exactly what it is. Literally an homage. It is an inferior design being worn because we love to cosplay.
Yes, exactly. Well, and they all kind of steal from each other, right? They all borrow, steal, you know, like the Romans take from the Greeks and the...
What's effective will usually be stolen by somebody because it's effective.
Yes.
But there's the bassinet, which means basket, which is the big helmet that you see like the Arya of the North, the Starks wear, without any of the face stuff on it that makes it famous.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's that. The Sallet is which might be what I think Martin calls a half helm.
Okay.
Which is it's a thing that's normally longer, it sticks out the back, and it has slots. It may have a little visor right here.
Yeah,
but
with
it has
whole,
ice slits.
Ice
it has
slits,
ice slits in it, and then it has the bever, which sits up on your face like this, and the helmet comes over the top of it, and that forms your helmet. It's more breathable than a classic helmet, but it's a lot more loose. That's where you start seeing people like grabbing people's helmets and shoving daggers in there because the helmet doesn't connect. Traditionally, they have pins, and they actually have them on chains, so you can pull the helmet, the visors and stuff off.
Yeah, what I notice is a lot of times the museums will have, like, say, they'll have the helm, but then the visor will be missing. Like but you'll see the spots where they would have been joined.
Yeah, visors don't last very long.
They don't last. They don't
they're
last.
Not important, and they change based on time period. Like the kind of visor that you wear to make a lance, a sword bounce off your helmet is not the one you want to make a lance bounce off your helmet, is the wrong one to make an arrow bounce off your helmet. So whatever they're expecting to go fight is the visor that they grab and put on their helmet.
Oh, by the way, 30 days left that you called him Mr. 30. Here, let me just get through a few more comments. So Tatiana says, "Oh, that always happens." Oh, she's just I think she's talking about maybe that person. Okay, we don't need to deal with that anymore. Lady Laura Dane says, "Poldark starts this Sunday here in the States. Cannot wait." Okay, so I've had viewers ask me to watch that. I haven't watched it. I don't know if you watched that.
I've seen that it exists, but I've never.
I think it's 18th century. I'm not sure, guys. I have it on my list to check out.
He wears breeches and an overshirt. I would probably say like 1770s to like
I can tell. I can tell by the hat. Like if it's a tricorn, I'm like, okay, that's like middle. If it's like bicorn or
technically it's a cocked hat. Technically, it's a cocked hat. You ever get around a reenactor who wears one?
Yes, sorry, I have seen it's called a cocked hat. Yeah, it's a cocked hat. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a cocked hat.
Okay. They will cut you. They carry swords. I've got, matter of fact, this little one right here that everyone thinks is a katana is actually a 1820s hunting sword. I had Will King hand make me for doing my my Highland impression.
Laura Dane says 1700s.
Yeah.
What did she say? I'm Italian. I should know these things. Laugh out loud. Did she mean about the armor? And Tatiana, actually, these people, everyone's from all over here. This is great. Amber says, Tatiana worries, let it roll off. Oh, okay. She's just feeling protective. That's okay. She's like my sweetheart. Amber says, and when you get mad, you can't argue as well. Okay, they're just still talking about this lady. Honestly, that was probably a kid who doesn't end. Okay, they're still, Laura Dane, she says 1700s-ish. Yeah. So, a cockish. A cockish? So it's called again?
A cocked hat.
Cocked hat. Yes. Okay. I read that when I was doing my Game of Thrones, when I was doing my Outlander research, I came across that name. So I didn't realize that was incorrect. She says, because Captain Poldark comes back from the war in America. So I'll have to check it out. Is it based on a book, guys? Or
and to be frank about the cocked hat, cocked hat means, it's been turned to a side.
Yes.
No one today, Victorians are prudes, and no one wants to say cock.
Oh, okay.
So they start calling it a tricorn. A bike. They start making Whitney.
Oh, okay.
It's like how they call
like the Gallipoli hats are like that. The Australian hats.
They that actually
what are they
is to
called?
keep your they're called an outback hat, and that's actually I'll use this axe to show you. That's to keep when you're aiming down your rifle, is to keep your hat from hitting it.
Sure. Okay.
I wear a lot of hats like that, and it's a problem. You get to where you can't see.
It has a fastener though that you can lower it, doesn't it?
A snap, yeah.
A snap,
and honestly, that's Italian style. That's not Italian, Australian. You know it's an Aussie because he's got his hat snapped up.
Okay. So
it's a thing they do, like in Texas, they curl their hats up like this.
Sure. Yeah.
It's,
well, we have this company. I can't remember what they're called anymore. They have a hat like that. They call it they call it like a safari hat or something. A safari.
Which are actually normally small. These are actually specific styles. You can go to any company that makes hats and order that particular style.
Okay. Yeah.
Some guy made that famous.
Wow.
And whatever he did, they call it usually by that.
Yeah. Oh, Tatiana's saying she's always gonna have my back. Yes, a series of books written by Winston Graham. I think it's spelled. This is a remake. There was a Poldark series made in the 70s. Oh, I didn't know that. They're remaking a lot of stuff. Like, I was just apparently they're remaking Shogun. We were talking about that.
That's awesome. I keep forgetting about Mr. 30's question about mail. The reason why everything is so bad nowadays is they make what they now call it butted mail, which literally means that the ends butt together. They just take wire and fold it.
Yeah, so you've got this weak point then.
Oh yeah, they never rivet it, they never weld it, they never attach it. It has whatever tensile strength the wire has individually. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's only like a 1-inch piece of wire to have tensile strength for. I've seen test footage, a guy using it like a longsword, which is the two-handed. The technical terms for swords that we're now using are arming sword means one-handed sword. Long sword is two-handed. Great sword is a sword that is so big you can no longer use the longsword fighting style with it.
Okay.
They can grab a regular broomstick and using it like a long sword, which is the two-handed sword, stab it clean through both sides of butted mail.
Yeah.
That's why you're like, all the modern stuff is bad. Well, it's literally just show armor. It looks like chainmail from a distance.
Yeah.
But it has no armor value. The only people who've ever used that armor are the Japanese a little bit. And that is specifically because the katana slides off of it. The shape of the katana.
Yeah, I saw the way I saw some pieces where it was used. It was actually on top of like the skirts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Places that aren't likely to get hit in the first place.
Which would have been underneath the lamellar. That would have been like a base to the. Yeah, so the piece I saw in a museum.
I was going to bring this up. And also armor, I think, looks cool. I think the helmets are interesting, but not the coolest thing. The Lannister armor is, I would say, is Japanese crossed with Portuguese.
Okay.
Because the Portuguese landed there and traded with the Japanese for like 50 years. And it looks like, I've seen daimyo armor, which is the 8 Japanese lords, the daimyo. I've seen armor that they bought from Europe or had modified in European style with Japanese flair to it. And that's what the Lannister really looks like, a European modified samurai armor.
Yeah, well, someone said to me they didn't like the lions or whatever, but I found found some French armor that had that embossed lion.
They love lions. Europe loves lions.
You know, it's funny because someone was talking about this the other day. So, like, they wouldn't have had lions. The animal of a lion.
There actually was a type of lion.
Oh,
and
really?
I think there's in Europe there's an indigenous. It's extinct by the Middle Ages. But there is a lion type. There was originally a lion up there. Another piece of armor they forget, and it's something that's talked about a lot in the books, they forgot about rondelles, which are, like when you see everyone
right, in the armpit, right?
Yeah. They put pieces of metal here, or they wore their Gambeson had mail to cover all of this, because the most obvious weak point ever.
Yeah, I know. That's one thing I kind of called out about the Lannister armor is that they do have that exposed spot there, and then they're just wearing the leather underneath it. Laura actually asks, she wants to know maybe a bit more about the Knights of the Vale. They were spectacular, like elves in Lord of the Rings.
Show up at the last minute, hit them hard.
There was the funny thing, though, in that is that one guy who is their head knight, he had that kind of like, I don't even know what you call it. You see, it's sort of like gladiator style. It has the sort of the spikes on it. Do you remember that? And then he ends up fighting with Braun, and Braun wins because Braun's not wearing any armor, right? He's like really fast on his feet. Whereas this guy is like cumbersome, and maybe he's not meant to be fighting in that way with that type of armor. Maybe that was meant more for on horse.
Yes, but give me 1 second. I don't want to give you an incorrect thing. Are we talking about the fight with for Tyrion?
Yeah, with Braun, he fight. I guess Lysa Arryn names whoever her head knight is to fight Braun, and then of course Braun stands up for Tyrion, like he's able to.
It's worth noting in the books that guy is talked about for being an idiot for volunteering, and an idiot for wearing the armor that he wore. Even in the book, he's talking about.
So it's not an appropriate armor for that type of hand-to-hand combat.
I
don't remember his name. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get a closer up picture of it, and you know how this.
Does anybody know who I'm talking about? In the chat here,
I think he's a Royce.
Well, there's Jan Royce. He's got like kind of like that sort of more like peas bod. I think they call it a peas cod belly style.
The way the armor looks in the right here on the pictures I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It looks like, and I could dig through some stuff so y'all could barely see what I'm talking about. It looks like they took Henry VIII's tournament armor and made a Japanese version of it.
Oh, okay.
Because that is lamellar on the bottom of his stuff.
Oh, sorry. Laura's talking about during the Battle of the Bastards. That's what she's talking about with their armor is during the Battle of the Bastards. I can't really remember. I think it's plate armor. I think it's like a plate armor.
Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah, Tatiana, that is really interesting about the Lannister armor. Oh, she says, oh, yeah, they rarely talked about since they rarely show up in the series. Sorry, what are you talking about, Tatiana? She's saying, so we're just looking up the Battle of the Bastards, guys. So if you're wondering what we're doing.
Yeah.
We'll probably just do maybe 1 or 2 more questions because it's getting pretty late and we're probably running out of steam.
I'm a little tired.
Everyone knows I get giggly. Much. Tatiana knows me that I start to run out of steam, eh, Tatiana? Oh, it's Sir Vardis Egan. Thank you, Jenny. Sir Vardis Egan. He was kind of an idiot. He had his own particular type of armor, though. Goddess Estrella says, oh, she's here too. She says, Sir Vardis Egan, the captain of the guards of the Eyrie as their champion. Yes.
Okay.
Kind of a weird, it was kind of like, so it's Sir, like Vardis, Vardis. Egan, Egen. Thanks so much, guys, for helping.
Yeah, the Google Images is showing me a bunch of stuff of like Stannis for some reason.
I don't know if anyways, we don't have to, we can get to it another point.
Yeah, that's some weird that's some weird texture. It looks like somebody put like chrome plate on him off of a truck bumper.
Yeah, I call it, I don't know, like it's kind of like a diamond shape or something. Like he's got like little diamonds kind of, and it reminds me of gladiators. You see these, like when someone's doing a gladiator show, they wear that kind of thing, or biker. It's kind of like a biker thing.
In HEMA, we would call that like a sword catcher. That's a guaranteed place that a sword's going to catch and cut you.
Sure. Oh, okay. So that means the sword will get stuck?
No, no, ma'am. It's a guider. If it hits that point, it's going to slide straight down into the thin crack. I mean,
Oh,
it's going to hit
okay.
right there on the weak, especially since they're all lined up in rows.
Oh, okay. Laura says she says, "Don't worry, guys. We can
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
do it another time." Does
I
anybody
would
else have any
probably
more
use that dead
questions?
moon.
Yeah, we can look into that. I just looked at it briefly, but I just thought it was funny because, you know, like Braun, he's not crazy about armor anyway. Like I was kind of making comments about the fact that he doesn't ever wear armor, which I thought was ridiculous. But I guess he just,
Well,
it's his personal style.
Well, and a bit of Hollywood on that is
Yeah.
also you have to remember these guys can't actually. These guys are probably not training year round to actually wear a real suit of armor, even if the armorer was willing to put them in one and the showrunner would allow it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
there are some. I'm willing to give allowances to shows just
Yeah.
because of physical capacity of the actors.
Exactly. Like, let me see if I missed any of these. Okay. Well, we've kind of touched on this again. In Game of Thrones, which armor is actually historically correct versus which one leans towards fantasy? Is there something in the show that's like you go, oh my God, that's total fantasy? You will never see that. Is that a hard question?
Well, hard to say.
It looks to me like from my point of view, that everything is based loosely on something.
Yeah, loosely. The big like talking about like the biggest offenders list here, Essos, all that weird leather. Well, because when I have the basis that they're making their leather armor wrong.
Are you talking about the Dothraki?
The Dothraki, the Unsullied.
Oh, the Unsullied. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay,
this is like Copper Age, Bronze Age Greek armor at best.
Yeah.
And, well, you know, like a lot of people don't know the Romans and stuff. You know, the famous leather armor that's shaped with the muscles and all that we know about the leather armor.
Yes.
That's actually Triumph armor. That is a lighter than metal armor suit that the victorious consul,
like Milos Gloriosus or something.
Yeah. The guy who won, who they're giving a festival for in Rome for winning.
Oh, okay.
He would have that super decorated and lightweight to wear back in the thing. It's not combat armur. It's
and so would that have would that be the one that would have the nipples versus the one that wouldn't have the nipples?
Well, it depends upon the time period and who you're talking about.
Okay,
so nipples on breastplates are historically accurate.
Yes.
Depends upon depends upon the time and the place.
Yes. So what did you think about it in Game of Thrones, though, on the women?
It's whatever. Stylistic choice, I guess. You can do whatever you want. Dorne's a weird place. Dorne's a weird place.
No, but speaking of Dorne, though, what did you think of Oberyn's, his trial by combat outfit? What did you think of that one, though? It's kind of like armadillo. It's kind of like an armadillo.
Yeah.
And again, you've got these kind of floating shoulder pieces, right?
Like we were talking about, I think we're talking about Oberyn Mountain Fight. Let me give it.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to give you some real accurate. I remember.
Yes, Aaron, the nipples are. Well, Aaron, I'm talking about it because it was in the top 10 worst Game of Thrones. That costume pulled like the 3rd worst costume, and I got a lot of flack from people. But I don't really care.
To be honest with you, because I forgot about that armor. It's so bad. I don't think of it as armor. He looks like a D&D huntsman.
Sure.
It's like, hey, look, I've got me some deer skins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not armor. He's got like a weird leather coat to look edgy, I guess. It's not much of armor. Especially the argument that I should wear X because it's lighter than Y. He's fighting a guy wearing padding, metal plates, leather, mail, and plate. You could wear any full suit of anything and still have on a literal third of what that guy's fighting in.
Yeah.
And Gregory Clegane fought with a great sword bigger than the one on the wall back here.
Sure.
and in the book it's referenced as he wielded it like a regular man wielded a dagger.
Well, I think the idea is that Oberyn's spear is tipped with poison or something. So even if he just gives them a little, oh yeah, it was tipped with poison.
Right, but
that's why, yeah.
Trying to get there's a lot of insanities in Oberyn's plan. However, Oberyn with a spear is probably as good as Jaime is with a sword.
Okay.
Oberyn is just a badass. He's played up as a playboy in the show, I think.
Yes.
But I mean, like, he spent time over in Essos with the Gold Company. Oberyn has gone all over the world as a mercenary and assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Oberyn Martell did stuff. Oberyn had an idea. He had skills.
Yeah.
He had a weird Chinese fighting style.
I think the idea is that it was hubris why he lost, right? Because
entirely.
Yeah.
And you can't play it a fight. You can't in a real fight, especially with somebody fighting Gregor Clegane is like fighting a Viking berserker in improved armor with a better sword, with a longer sword. I mean, it's not something you can't play at a fight. If you play at a fight, you lose.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost because he got cocky. His headspace wasn't there.
So that's really interesting what you think about his armor, because I thought that they had taken the armor. I don't know if you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I thought his armor kind of looked like Dracula's armor, which apparently Aiko had based off an armadillo.
Well, I mean, it's not combat armor.
Sure.
I could say it looks cool. If you made it out of steel, good armor. But I can't get over the material. Yeah,
Goddesses, I think it was Kyburn said it was manticore venom that had been slowed or thickened by some means. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he eventually dies, but it wouldn't have, it's like, I mean, to win that battle, poison wouldn't have done it. He would have needed
something. Actually, I would say with that in mind, Oberyn wasn't expecting to win, because he had to kill the mountain to prove Tyrion innocent in that trial by combat.
Yes, yeah.
He only would have poisoned the spear if he expected to lose.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, because it was a slow death, right?
I mean, there's no way it would have helped him in the fight. Especially, I mean, once again in the books, the mountain that rides is near 8 foot tall than 7. They couldn't find an actor big enough.
Now, let me ask you a question. If there was Clegane Bowl, have you heard about that?
Ma'am, a Clegane Bowl, yes.
Clegane Bowl. If there was that, what would you like to see the two of them wearing in that combat?
Honestly, ballerina outfits.
Really, that would be awesome. Oh my god, that would be so cool. Yeah.
No, I mean, I would love to see the Hound's helm come back at the very least.
The one that looks like the dog?
His actual hounds, yeah.
Yeah, his hound dog. Okay. Yeah, we haven't seen that for a long time now, I think.
No, and that's so sad. That's such a. I mean, that's.
Now, have you seen helms like that with animals?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, there are historical pieces that we know went to battle. There were even better representations of the animal than that.
Really?
Yeah. They legit. I mean, like when I'm telling you, they could have taken it up a notch. There should be at least 20 people in any battle with a helmet at least that good.
Yeah. So would that be, again, a personal, like that would be based upon your personal character?
Personal choice.
Personal choice. Yeah. So if you were like, you got that nickname or something, obviously he got that nickname.
I would have a wolf helm that's enameled.
You would have a wolf helm. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So that would be like a personal thing. And maybe you have a reputation that precedes you. And then as you come into a tournament or something.
Good or bad, you would know it was me from a long way off.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you have a fearsome reputation, that would be cool because then you'd have your helmet.
Like you're as bad as Sir Dantos. There goes the king's fool. You can spot that guy.
Okay. He gone now too. Oh no, another person. Oh jeepers, what's going on tonight? Don't people have anything better to do but troll? Yeah, we're getting all these trolls, and you know what I think it is?
We're popular, man.
Well, yeah, but also last week, because I had that video up, I got a lot of people who like really hated me after that video. So I think I have a lot of. I had some trolls, and so I'm probably gonna get a few trolls. They usually fall away, kind of thing.
Yeah, I forget which culture said it. Probably several cultures but there are several cultures. I know at least a couple of Native Americans believe that you, and maybe Greeks, I don't know, but you can judge a man by the quality of his enemies. So the more haters you got, the better off you are.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because I had like, I was sort of talking to somebody about it. I got like, I don't know, 300 thumbs down or something. And I'm like, oh, well. But you know, it's funny though, but I ended up like, I met you and your wife and I met some like new people that I hadn't known before. So I was like, oh, this is actually really good. I'm actually meeting some cool new people and people who are like genuinely like really, really interested in costumes or really interested in Game of Thrones. So it was really fun because I was like, and then they started watching some of my other videos and had some really great conversations.
I'm not that interested in clothes, and your videos are pretty cool. I can at least sit down. I can at least watch them. You know, I've learned a thing or two.
It's funny because like years ago, I worked in, this is just out of college, I worked in a costume store. And so we had like all this like reproduction armor and a lot of it was crap, but some of the pieces were really good. And so it was so funny. It was like all girls, right? So I became the armor expert and the military expert. I became the military and the armors expert. So we had a really good book collection as well. And so it'd be like, okay, Heidi, what if someone have worn at this time? And I'd be like, oh, let me look it up.
I can tell you from selling at shows of all different types, having people around stuff. If you can get a woman standing next to the shinies, to the hit people stuff,
yeah,
you could sell water to a mermaid. You know,
well, it was funny because I went to this this fan expo thing just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a booth, and they were selling like all these really amazing horror masks, you know, like, and they were all custom made, and like some of them were really gruesome, but they did popular characters as well. And they had a woman, and she was like really outgoing, and I interviewed her. And it was really funny because they were doing awesome. Like, because they had this woman, she's really, you know, pretty, not, you know, she's attractive, she's really outgoing. And the guys are all like, you know, zoning in there, like, eh. But no, I love it. And I, even though I love beautiful, pretty things, I've just always been really interested. And it's kind of like one of those things, like, I kind of wish like I had maybe channeled myself a little bit differently when I was younger. But, you know, I'm doing it, I'm kind of a late bloomer to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Tatiana. She says they're just jealous of how awesome we are. It's so true. Anyways, I'm going to start wrapping this up because it's 11:30. It's probably 10:30 for you. Yeah. And my whole family's gone to bed. My husband has to get up early and the kids are in bed. Do you have kids, by the way? Sorry if that's personal. You don't have to tell me.
A couple.
Yeah. So,
and I'm also an insomniac, so it doesn't matter what time we get off. I'm not sleeping for a couple hours.
No, I'll be up for a while too. Says, oh, Sarah's here. Hi, Sarah. She says, love the beautiful dresses and clothing in Game of Thrones, but Heidi's armor videos and male costumes are the most fascinating to me. Thank you so much. Well, I have to tell you guys, first of all, Redwolf, I hope you come back. Will you come back again? This has been great.
This has been fun. This is what I like to do. I really missed an opportunity when I found out that there was no money in teaching history to people.
Yes.
Unless you're selling them something.
And there's not much money in YouTube either, but that's okay. But I do this for the love of it. I have a day job, so I'm able to kind of do this on the side. And Laura, Lady Laura says, thank you, and guests, thanks mods and everyone in the chat. Yeah, so I want to thank 30 Days, who's been in the chat for like 3 hours, and Aaron, who's been here.
Going on.
Yeah, I know. And he's got his own great channel. He does grooming products reviews. He's got an awesome channel if you guys want to check it out.
That's cool. I could use some education on that at some point.
Yeah, and my husband has a full beard now too. So we were sort of.
I hacked mine off 2 weeks ago.
You had did you have a ZZ Top beard? Did you have a ZZ Top?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had.
Oh my God! You should have kept it. Like that's so in now.
It's cooling off, so we no longer have the bad mosquitoes anymore. I grow my hair out to keep the mosquitoes off my face.
That's true. Yeah. Well, Jack, my husband, grew it out, and he said it was so itchy for like a long time, but now it's finally better.
Yeah, because the hairs get bigger.
They get bigger and softer, I guess, right?
Yeah, and they're just annoying.
But anyway, and so one of the things I want to tell you, everybody, is so it's been a really fun week. So this week, Tatiana and me and Aaron. What happened was I'm doing a top 20 Game of Thrones costumes. So I ran several polls. And so Tatiana and Aaron and I got together, the three of us, and we like brainstormed and we curated this like top 20 list. So I'm working on that now. It's going to be hopefully in a week. And then I'm going to have them on the live stream, everybody, to talk about how we kind of came up with our list. We're going to have some honorable mentions as well. And also I have a video right now, if you guys haven't seen it, on the worst Game of Thrones costumes. I said of all time, but it's basically up to season 7, which is how I met you and your lovely wife, Redwolf. And what else do I say? And I have 2, just coming up, I'm going to be having cosplayer Kristen Thomas come back on. She was an Outlander cosplayer. Do you know what cosplay is, by the way, Redwolf? Do you know what that is?
Yeah. When I went to college, I got attached to a bunch of cosplayers and stuff.
They're very fun people.
Yeah. Well, the only problem I've ever had is I do stuff for real, and they think they do stuff.
Yes.
And that ends up bumping heads after a certain point.
I could see that, but well, Kristen, like, okay, she's like my Outlander cosplayer, and she builds stuff very accurately. So I think there's different levels of reenactors.
Yes.
But also, if the show's not accurate, then their clothes aren't going to be accurate. So there's that as well. But anyway, she is an amazing cosplayer. She's out of Detroit, and so she's going to be coming on, everybody, and I'm going to do a Q&A with her. So if I have anybody who wants to know how to make, I don't know, bodices or whatever, chemises, she's going to bum rolls. She's going to know all about that. So that's going to be really fun. So she's coming up, I think, in a week. And anyway, so I was going to say, I have your YouTube channel in the description. Should I add your store? Do you have a website for it?
I spent 3 years and several $1,000s trying to get anybody to buy anything from that. And one time I had a guy call us, and the only thing I've ever sold, had a guy call and ask for a part off of one of the things we had on there.
Oh, okay. So you just forget it. It's like not worth it.
I'm not even throwing good money after bad.
Yeah. So you have a brick and mortar store that people can come into.
I have a brick and mortar store right now.
Okay. So I'm going to put your YouTube on there, and I've got your Google Plus on there as well. So is that good? Is that the best way if people want to hit you up, ask you a question or something? Yeah,
that'd be pretty simple. And if anybody who's watching wants me to do a video on something, let me know. It's been pretty directionless. I had before I got my store, and I quit having time to edit the videos, which was the hard part. And I take a lot of time doing stuff correctly. I had 8 or 10 subscribers, and was getting no feedback from them on what they wanted to see, what they wanted to hear from me. Y'all have heard more about this kind of stuff that I know about than probably my channel has.
Yeah.
If something y'all want to see, let me know. If y'all want me to test some stuff, just anything. You want me to sit around and ramble on a particular topic, I can do that. I can point you in some correct directions to find some good information.
I've subscribed to you, by the way. So if you guys want to go over and check out his channel. I just got someone who just came in. Oh, sorry, we're just finishing up. Kara Meyer. Nice. I hope I can catch the stream then. Oh, sorry, we're just finishing up. Sorry about that, but you'll be able to watch it on the replay. So if anybody it just came in late and want to watch any of this, it'll be on the replay. Same with you, Redwolf. If you wanted to share it with anybody, it'll be like a regular video after we're done. Okay. If you want to watch it, or whatever. I sometimes do that.
I'll hit you up and figure something out.
I do that sometimes because then I can see what people commented on. I don't get to always see the comments, so then I can see what they commented on.
Yeah, my YouTube version of the stream is 20 minutes behind the conversation.
Yeah, so it's sometimes a good way for me to see what people were talking about, or but anyway, I want to thank you so much for coming on. You have this lovely Louisiana sort of disposition, and Aaron, who's in the chat, he has this lovely South Carolina thing. So it's really lovely. And so the one thing that's fun about YouTube is you get to meet people from all over the world, and I think that's really cool about it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Get to sort of get in a little slice of somebody's life, what it's like.
Yes, ma'am. You get to share stuff, because it's always awesome what relates to stuff that it shouldn't relate to at all.
Yeah, and then maybe like because Aaron and Tatiana, when we have the first trailer come out, we're gonna maybe do a video about that. So maybe we can have a chat, like a video chat about when the new season has a trailer and sort of get some feedback from you. What you think of that? What do you think of that idea?
Hit me up. If
Yeah,
I'm free.
Okay. Well, and also thank you to your wife as well for letting us have you. And if she ever feels comfortable, we'd love to have her come on because I'd love to talk to her about some of her Viking recreations and reenactment garments that she does.
Talk her into it, but I'm not going to hold out a lot of hope.
Okay. And also, does she do the actual weaving? Does she do any of that?
No, ma'am. She is too busy minding the
children
in her life. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Mine are a little older now, so it's not as hard.
Yeah,
it's easier when they get older. Trust me.
Mine are finally getting old enough to quit the work. I understand the old people now.
I know. Okay, so thanks everybody. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Okay, and I will be the show will be either next Saturday, but I'll make an announcement. It might have to be a weekday, because it's our Canada. We have our Thanksgiving in October, so it's way earlier than you guys. So I have to just check that out. So it will either be like during the week or on the weekend. Okay, with Kristen. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.